WPXI presents the Black and Gold Zone inside the NFL Draft in Pittsburgh with Channel 11 Sports Director Jenna Harner and Shelby Cassesi.
Hello and welcome into Steelers headquarters. We are live here for day 2 of Inside the Draft. I'm Jenna Harner. She's Shelby Cassesi. We have a whole lot to talk about. We knew there was going to be a lot of conversation surrounding the Steelers' first-round pick. I don't think we anticipated this type of conversation today.
And the way it all came together in the span of, what, 5 minutes, less than that, between the time that the Eagles traded up, selected Makai Lemon, and the time that we talked to Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy after the pick. I think everyone in that room last night, Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy included, were processing what just happened.
It was no doubt a very interesting turn of events. The board seemed to have Makai Lemon falling to the Steelers. We knew the interest there was in the wide receiver from USC. The pick there's a trade up announced, and the Steelers end up picking offensive lineman, tackle Max Iheanachor. We will get Arizona State offensive tackle. His story to me is a very, very, very interesting one. He didn't even start playing football until he went to junior college.
Not a snap of football until college. And you and I kind of laughed last night because we were watching the draft broadcast in the Steelers media room, and the Steelers draft Max Iheanachor. They pull up a big graphic, and the audio wasn't on, so we couldn't hear what they were talking about. But the first bullet point was basketball player. And it just made me chuckle because it is part of his story. And, you know, you and I both love that aspect of this profession, is telling these stories and finding these unique angles. Max Iheanachor, a basketball and soccer player, his family coming over from Nigeria at 13 years old, and doesn't play a down of football until junior college, which, I mean, shows you the athleticism that he has to go from playing your first snap of football to a first-round pick in 4 years.
Just a handful of years.
Yeah.
And he, when we spoke with him too, you could sense his excitement. I think that I know a lot of people are looking at this pick right now and kind of having some mixed feelings, and even listening to some of the fans that Rich Pierce, who was down on the North Shore talking with fans after this pick, you could sense there's a little bit of uncertainty, might not be the word, but just I don't think anybody expected
shock.
this. Yeah, shock. Yeah, no, that is a perfect phrase for it. They didn't expect to get an offensive lineman. I guess especially Iheanachor himself. I know the Steelers did have him graded. He was graded a first or second round guy. There's a lot of potential, and there's been so much talk about his ceiling. He has a very, very high ceiling, which could be a phenomenal thing for the Steelers. But I think a lot of people, when they looked at this draft, said, okay, this is the draft that they're finally going to go get a skill player. We talked with Chris Carter about that yesterday. We talked about Alan Saunders with the aspect of, hey, this is a very good draft to get those skill players, to add to the receivers room, to get DBs. And once Vanga Ioane went off the board, I think a lot of people said,
the one that got away from me.
He's going to be the one that got away. Of course, he goes to the Ravens, too.
Right.
But, you know, you look at Iheanachor, and I don't think a lot of people would have said this is who the Steelers' first-round pick is going to be. And now it's 3 of the last 4 years the Steelers' front office has drafted an offensive tackle with their first-round pick. And we're sitting here, we do not know who is going to be in that left tackle role to start the season. I think that's the bigger question for me here.
Yeah, and I think that this pick lends itself to a couple of those points. One is there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding Broderick Jones. Omar Khan said as much last night. You know, that is partially a factor, but they're continuing to evaluate him and try to find out what his outlook is for this coming season. You have Troy Faltanu, who, you know, started at right tackle last year. Mike McCarthy confirmed Max Iheanachor will not flex over to guard. He's going to be a true tackle, which is what he is used to playing. He did have some versatility at left and right tackle, but playing mostly right tackle at Arizona State, almost exclusively right tackle at Arizona State. And, you know, it's just, I think where the struggle is for me in this is the fact that you are either with this pick saying that Broderick Jones is not panning out either from a health perspective or from a performance perspective, or you just drafted someone in the first round who is likely not going to find his way onto the field as a starter unless you can find some other avenue for one of your other tackles or for him.
And it would be different, I think, if the Steelers were in a little bit of a different position. Like if we knew coming into the year this team was really, you never want to say punting on a season, but was not going to be in a position to compete the way that we've expected them to compete in years past. Then you could say, okay, you are selecting guys for the future. You're building these guys so that when you do look to get your quarterback of potentially the franchise next year, which we anticipate being an aspect of what this franchise is going to look to do, then you say, okay, there's a lot of pieces in place here. The Steelers are not at that point. They keep seeming to straddle this window of, you know, they're still trying to win now, but there are guys that are aging out. There are the uncertainty and all the questions at the quarterback position too. To me, it's a very interesting, like, I'm not entirely sure where the Steelers front office is. And again, Iheanacho's ceiling is a very, very, very high one. He's also a very durable guy, too. And I think Mike McCarthy mentioned that when we spoke with him last night as well. I want to make sure I have the stat right, but he had 28 straight starts to end his college career, which you want that durability. Mike McCarthy did say, you know, again, it's the offensive line. Guys get hurt frequently.
And we've seen that here in Pittsburgh the last couple of years.
Broderick Jones and himself. So, you know, you want to have that depth there to be able to put guys into situations where it's okay, we feel very confident in the next guy stepping up. Again, I think this is a very, you know, I'm excited to talk with Iheanachor in a little bit when he arrives here to Steelers headquarters, but he seems very excited. I think, and it may just be, too, once fans hear from him a little bit more in person, see him here, that might cause a little warming up. I just think a lot of people, again, anticipated, oh, the Steelers are going to go receiver in this first round, and felt shocked and a little bit, you know, uncertain when they didn't.
And I think the perfect storm brewed around this situation, and we're going to get to the Makai Lemon situation a little bit later, but you now have this very public video of the Steelers going after Makai Lemon. It doesn't pan out. I think there is a lot of talk surrounding the Steelers kind of sitting on their hands rather than going up and getting him. So I think, you know, if you even just separate the pick itself from this entire scenario, there is a lot of consternation about the rest of the situation leading the team to Max Iheanachor. And unfortunately, you're kind of putting that additional pressure or additional narrative on this kid that's just excited to be drafted, excited to be coming into a new city. And I know we got to talk to him a little bit last night. And we can go to that now and listen to all that he had to say about what this experience was like and receiving that life-changing phone call.
It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience for sure, man. I mean, I'm still very emotional right now, man. Just really grateful for the opportunity, you know, ready to come in and get to work.
Max, Jerry Dulac, I'm curious, did you have much discussion with the Steelers pre-draft? Did you have any inkling you might end up here?
Honestly, I mean, I had a formal at the combine with them. You know, it went really well. Talked to them, and then after that, I mean, we had a Zoom. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Honestly, you know, it's my first time ever. You know. You can't, you know, you don't know where you're going. Like, I didn't know where I was about to go, honestly. But, you know, just appreciate the opportunity, man, to just come in a great organization and get to work.
Hey, Max, Brooke Pryor with ESPN. Congratulations. Just what were your impressions talking with the Steelers coaches? What did they kind of see about what they envision your role being in Pittsburgh?
Oh, man, you know, they have a really young O-line room, man, you know, just coming in, get ready to just compete, man. I'll definitely say, like, they liked a lot about me, you know, how far. I'll definitely say everything went for me and how good I handled every adversity I faced. And, you know, we're all going to go through hard times in life, but, you know, it's all worth it at the end of the day. Just keep going. And, you know, this whole journey just started. It's nowhere near to be ended, so I'm just ready to just keep going, rolling, man. I'm ready.
Max, Jeff Hathorn with KDK Radio. Has it sunk in? You've played football for only a couple of years, and now you're going to play in the NFL?
Man, it literally just hit me, like, at that call, man. I was, like, actually just out of my body type of experience. I don't even know how to explain it, man. It was surreal, like... Man, big shout out to God, man. You know, without him, none of this would be possible, for real, man. My parents was in the building. It was just a great time and great place to celebrate.
Max, Nick Faribault here. You grew up playing soccer and basketball. How do you think that shows up in your game, and how did it help your transition to the NFL?
Man, I mean, good footwork for sure, coordination. But yeah, it all plays a part in the O-line, man. You have to have great feet, good coordination, man. It all starts from there. But there's other stuff that all play into football, the little things. But I think playing soccer, great feet, coordination, man, definitely carried on to basketball and then translates into football even better.
Max, Shelby Cassasi with WPXI. What areas of your game are you hoping to develop most here at the next level?
Honestly, man, I'm ready to develop everything. Like, I know deep down to do a lot of things way better in the run, in the pass. Definitely all part of my game, man. I'm just ready to improve all that every day.
Hey, Max, Alan Saunders with Pittsburgh Sports Now. Omar Khan just told us he got off the phone with Hines Ward after he picked you. What's been your relationship with him, and what's he told you about the Steelers?
Man, just knowing he's a Steelers legend, man. Came in, great energy, taught the receivers group a lot. But, I mean, just his grit he played with on the field, man. Like, one of his main things was he blocked hard and always preached that for the receivers, and they improved a lot on that. But just see the type of man he is, man. Comes up every day, great energy, carries himself well, man. Like, I definitely got to experience what a Steeler is firsthand in the building before now going in the building with, the actual team. But, yeah, he definitely, done a good job at that for sure.
Max, this is Mike DeFabio from The Athletic. Congratulations. What would you say to Steelers fans if they were wondering what type of player their team just got?
Man, a guy that's going to come in, man, work hard, but also be a sponge, man. I'm ready to learn. Whatever it is I'm willing to do for the team, man, help this team win, man. It's a great organization, like I said. Just coming in, man, just ready to learn, ready to compete, get to work.
Max. Max Iheanachor with WPXI. When we just talked with General Manager Omar Khan, he mentioned that you really fit the type of player that the Steelers want to have and the type of player the Steelers are. How would you describe how you fit into what a Steelers player is?
Man, I think I feel really good, man. Guys that's work hard every day, man, and just bring about the little things, man. Treat people good. Come up there with great intensity every day in the building, ready to work hard. But obviously it's a brotherhood, so we all, look out for each other at the end of the day, because that's what we're going to war with at the end of the day. But, just coming in, ready to work and just, fit in wherever they want me to be at and shit just gets it rolling.
And I loved, too, how Iheanachor was telling a little bit of his story. He moved here to the United States from Nigeria when he was 13 years old. He gave so much credit to his parents. Yeah. His parents were definitely apprehensive about him playing football a little bit. It was kind of a very big life decision for him to basically tell his parents, hey, I'm going to go to school and play football. He told us his parents wanted him to, be a doctor, be a lawyer. And that's a very, he explained it, Nigerian family style dynamic.
Yeah, and he was asked, how did your parents feel about all this when you said, hey, I've never played football, but I'm going to go to college for it and try it out? And he was honest, and he said, they really weren't on board. And I think really anyone in that situation could kind of be like, hey, that's kind of a head scratcher. What do you mean you haven't played a down of football? But again, and we're going to be talking to his junior college coach here at the top of the hour, and he played a huge role. I guess he noticed Max playing basketball, noticed the size, noticed the physicality, and said, we have a spot for you on our team at East Los Angeles College if you want to come try it. And so that's a huge, I also believe he was in the room last night when Max was drafted. So I'll be interested to pick his brain and see what that process was like. But you can hear a guy who is so excited, who, wasn't sure where he was going to fall, was maybe a little bit surprised that it is Pittsburgh, because they had, I think it was a combine interview and a Zoom call. Yep. He was not here for a top 30 visit, so
they saw him at the Senior Bowl too.
And the Senior Bowl. Yep. So perhaps, not on his radar a bit to be here in Pittsburgh. But I also think one of the other things that I found interesting about the conversation is he knows he's green. He said a lot of things that lent itself to, I'm ready to be a sponge, I'm ready to work on everything. So he understands he's coming in here with a lot to learn, a lot to develop in his game. So he does have that self-awareness of what he's probably going to be asked to do here in Pittsburgh, especially at first.
And I want to make a point clear too, because I think this narrative is one I've been hearing a little bit this morning, where a lot of people say, oh, well, the Steelers just panicked, and when Makai Lemon wasn't there, they immediately were, oh, what do we do? Oh, I guess this, the Steelers have their board set. They have their guys all graded with the first rounds, with who they think that they want to acquire, with, okay, if this guy gets selected, where are we going? If this wasn't a, fantasy.
What do we do?
Yeah, it was not that. It wasn't oh no, the guy in front of me in fantasy football drafted the guy that I really wanted, so now the Steelers have grades for these players, so they clearly, we'll talk more again about the Makai Lemon situation, but they, felt that they were going to get their guy, and then they had to pivot, and this is the guy that they seemingly feel confident in. We want to go also now, Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy. We spoke with them minutes after this pick was announced.
Minutes. The pick was made, they walked in.
Yeah.
So the emotion that you see here, probably pretty reflective of what played out in those few minutes.
Obviously extremely excited about Big Max. You guys have heard me talk about offensive linemen and, how I feel about him for a long time. And we feel, really great that he was still there when we were picking. I just got off the phone with Hines, actually. As you guys know, he coaches out there, and he was so excited and so fired up for Max and for us. And say he's a Steeler. You guys hear me talk about guys that are Steelers all the time, and he said it too, man. This guy's a Steeler. So with that, excited. It gives us a lot of options on the offensive line, and like I said, I can't wait. Coach?
Yes, I'm very excited about Max. Our offensive line coaches are bouncing off the wall. I know it's a little late. You guys look like you're dragging a little bit. Sorry to hold you in there, but I can't tell you enough about. You don't have enough big men up front. He is a great fit for us. Just a stud of a young man. Throughout the process, you heard about him a little bit early, and he just kept growing and growing and growing through the evaluation. So, and as we really winded down this week, he, just frankly just kept climbing up our board. So we were just real excited that he was there, and I think it's an excellent pick for us, and he'll be a great addition to our offensive line.
Questions? Mark, is the pick any reflection on Broderick Jones?
Sure, that's a little bit of a concern. You guys have heard me talk about that, but we have guys that have, you guys always hear me talk about versatility too, Jerry, and we got guys on the offensive line that can play different positions in the offensive line, and as I mentioned, we have options.
Mike, does it raise the possibility of moving? I know it's a little early, but moving Father to left tackle?
Well, I think all those things are, discussions that will occur after the draft. We had 2 really good days, Monday and Tuesday, to work with our men. And frankly, we looked at as much position flex throughout the individual drills that we did work with the offensive line. We even had some, they're not team drills, but group activity that we worked at a number of the offensive linemen, both left and right. So, it's part of being a new staff. They're excited about it. We wanted to see what this weekend brings, and we're off to a hell of a start for our offensive line room. So position flex is huge. I think it's bigger than ever in the NFL. 17 games is real, and adding Max to this group is, I can't tell you how excited we are with the pick.
Might you back tackle guard as an option, maybe?
I'm sorry?
Would that include guard as an option possibly back?
With Max, no. We'll start him off at tackle. Once again, we want to work with him, and I know our line coaches had a Zoom with him the other day, and man, it's nice to see it come together. And this evaluation starting with Omar and the personnel staff, and he's made a huge impression on us. I think he's a great fit for us.
So is it right tackle only? Is that what he's going to start?
He hasn't arrived yet. I'm just talking about position flex. He's part of the conversation.
Could Troy Falcano could guard too in that conversation, like more and more?
Lots of options there. We got options.
Yeah.
Mike, how much do you feel he's tapped into his potential at this point?
Oh, he's just getting started. He hasn't played a lot of football in his life, and he's only going to get better.
This is a challenging position. What have you learned about what it takes to develop a tackle so that he's ready sooner than later to step in and start?
I mean, that's a pretty general question, but I think it's specifically to tonight. I mean, that's why it's important to get Max here, see where he fits. You know, it's not as much as just, you know, what he's done at Arizona State. It's really the techniques and how we're going to play and things like that. So when you get everybody here, which, you know, we will do in 2 weeks, then we'll have a better idea exactly what he needs to work on.
Mike, you said you moved up throughout the process, Senior Bowl, Combine, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he won through the process. I mean, he really did. You know, he won everywhere he was. The Senior Bowl, the Combine. You know, the interaction we had through our Zooms. It just felt right.
Omar, was it always offensive line, or how the board brought you to the offense?
You know, you trust your board, but you know the way it shook out. Yeah, it just, you know, it brought us to the position, and it was the right pick for us.
How much did Philadelphia trading up, jumping you guys influence, or caused you guys to pivot with that?
You know, I think all those things that happen around us, you know, affect the conversations, but just the draft.
Both of you mentioned the impression he made on you. What is it specifically about maybe your interactions with him that made you feel he was a fit here?
Well, I mean, I'll just talk from the coach's perspective. You got to remember, you know, Omar and the personnel staff, they've been working on this, you know, for 12 months. You know, we're new staff, you get in place, so we're later to the game. You know, I didn't know a whole lot about Max 2 months ago, and so as you know, you go through the process with the staff. I mean, he's someone that I know just between myself and the offensive line coaches, we've been talking a lot about him lately.
Like, how do you see his background with soccer and basketball before he committed to football show up his footwork and his game?
Well, I think the biggest thing when you watch linemen play, you want to see him strike and stick, and with that, you know, the balance and the footwork, you know, his ability to stay alive on second or third reaction when he does engage. I think it's all over the video.
And you just heard there from Steelers general manager Omar Khan and Steelers head coach Mike McCarthy. And Shelby, when they came into the room last night, the emotion was interesting. I'm still trying to pinpoint an exact word for what it felt like when they were meeting with us, obviously not knowing what we know now with the Makai Lemon situation.
Yeah, it did feel like they were kind of processing the situation a little bit, and I think we all were to some degree, because we knew the Steelers' interest in Makai Lemon. He was one of their few first-round graded top 30 visits. Meetings went well. Both sides had said that, and it just felt like it was going to play right into the Steelers' hands that he fell to 21st overall. You have an in-division trade, which we'll get to a little bit later in this segment, to have the Eagles jump the Steelers. The Steelers have to make a pick right away. And then again, you know, minutes later, they're walking into that press conference room. And I think you felt just sort of that, what just happened from everyone in that room, Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy, and us as a beat included. Like, let's talk about this together and figure out what the heck happened.
So what was really interesting was, of course, you know, the Steelers make the pick. We talk with Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy. We talk with Iheanachor. We come out here getting set for our live shots. All of a sudden, the report comes out. It was initially from Ian Rappaport, and then you hear both Eagles GM Howie Roseman as well as Makai Lemon themselves confirming this report that the Cowboys were picking 20th overall. The Cowboys were the one pick ahead of the Steelers. Everybody knew they were going defense. Everybody knew that they were going to be taking a defensive player. They did not need a receiver. They did not need to add to that room. So the Steelers call Makai Lemon, have him on the phone. They are getting ready to draft their wide receiver that was an elite talent, was one of the top 3 graded receivers in this draft, fell almost what felt like perfectly to them. And then Lemon gets a phone call from the Philadelphia Eagles, who had traded up with the Cowboys. I believe we have a little bit of that conversation now. We want to play that for you. Oh, this is just the video of everything that was happening.
You described it well. There's a video that came out, and Makai Lemon, you hear, you know, from Omar Khan's voice, you know, hey, it's Omar from the Steelers, and Makai Lemon's family gets up, starts cheering, and then Makai Lemon says, wait a second, why am I getting a call from Philadelphia? And then someone else runs in and says, they just traded for you. Philadelphia traded for you. They're going to draft you. And honestly, like, let's just be candid. It's a tough watch. It's a tough watch for the Steelers. It's tough optics because not only did the draft they want to make fall out of their hands by some opinions because they weren't aggressive enough, but also now you draft Max Iheanachor and it's very public and very out there that he is a Steeler because their draft plan fell through a little bit, fell through a lot actually. And I want to talk about sort of the way the Steelers approach this because there is that take that why did the Steelers sit on their hands in this case rather than just go up and get their guy? But you and I were sitting there and we were looking at the draft board probably about 6 or 7 picks ahead. And we kept saying, they're not going to take a receiver. They're not going to take a receiver. They might take a receiver. They're not. And so I think the Steelers probably felt pretty good about where they sat for Makai Lemon. And I don't think anyone predicted that Dallas and Philadelphia would make an in-division trade. Dallas would allow the Eagles to trade up to get a weapon like Makai Lemon. No one could have predicted that. And it's giving me shades of last year when the Bengals and Browns arranged a trade for Joe Flacco that sent Joe Flacco to the Bengals like the week they played the Steelers. And then Joe Flacco and the Bengals beat the Steelers, and Mike Tomlin was not pleased about that. Publicly. But anyways, it gave me shades of that because no one could have anticipated that. So I think if I were to assume, the Steelers thought it was playing right into their hands. But there is that sense of if you know you want someone, you know that there could be someone behind you that also wants that person. You have 12 picks. Go ahead and be a bit more aggressive to ensure you get that person.
And I almost wonder if the way the board shook out, there didn't end up being a trade partner. I know we had talked about the conversation so many times about them potentially looking to trade with the Bucs at 15 overall. However, Miami's Ruben Bain fell to Tampa Bay perfectly to the point where they said, hey, we're not going to go for, we don't need to trade. This is the guy that we want in our franchise. So I'm sure those conversations happened, but I'm sure Tampa Bay, I doubt the Steelers even attempted to, but if they did, Tampa Bay was not entertaining that trade call because of the fact that, hey, the guy that they want, that they didn't even think was going to be available to them, he was supposed to go top 6, fell right to them. So, and then it didn't seem like there were any, I don't want to say viable, but not a lot of those like 16 to 20 picks. The Steelers probably felt they didn't need to trade at that point. I am curious, though, about them not getting a defensive player because I believe there could have been more of a need. And I think if you got a splashy DB, you got Oregon's Dylan Thieneman, I think people would have reacted a bit differently and said, okay, hey, the receiver that they didn't want to get, that they wanted, went ahead of them. This is a position of need. I think a lot of people look at offensive line and tackle in particular and say, here we go again. It's been 3 of the last 4 seasons that they've added in the offensive trenches, and then the last 4 seasons adding in the defensive trenches now.
We talked about it, not just us, but every draft analyst under the sun talked about the Steelers needing receivers, defensive backs, and specifically guards. And because that pick didn't fall into that umbrella, there is a lot of shock. And again, you have the additional context of what happened as the Steelers were trying to get that wide receiver. Defensive back seems to be one of the deeper talent pools, as does receiver. So, the Steelers do have 4 picks today. We'll see how that kind of falls in their favor if it does. But I am assuming and I am hoping that they dip into those areas of need today a little bit more, maybe to win back some favor after what happened last night. But we will... It's just a really tough look, unfortunately, for the Steelers today, just because of the way this has all played out. It is a tough situation to ask a young kid to come in and handle as well. And I think not only because they drafted the position that he is, it's the newness of it all to him. It's the fact that he is still a project. High ceiling, quick ascent, but still someone that's not going to be likely, unless a lot changes or, we'll see how this offseason develops, likely not going to be a day 1 starter. And I think when you draft someone first overall, unless it is like a quarterback situation where that person's going to sit behind it, kind of like Ty Simpson, where he's going to sit behind Matt Stafford, unless it is a situation like that, people want your first rounders to be day 1 starters or be day 1 contributors. And I just don't think Makai Lemon would have been that. and Max Iheanachor is not.
Now, I think if the Steelers go out today and either swing a trade or they add a receiver, I think the conversation shifts a lot, because I think a lot of people also looked at, you know, okay, when Lemon goes off the board, well, why didn't they go for Omar Cooper? Well, why didn't they go for Denzel Boston? Denzel Boston is still sitting there right now, and I know there are some wide receiver needy teams like the Bills that are probably looking at Boston and saying, hey, they traded out of the first round 3 times. There's a really good opportunity to be able to get a guy that we had very high on our draft board. But when Lemon went, again, he was one of the top 3 graded receivers. It was him, Jordan Tyson, and Carnell Tate. And of course, Tyson and Tate were already off the board. When Lemon goes, I think the Steelers probably looked at things and said, okay, the receivers, you know, the Omar Cooper, those, you know, the receivers in that tier, they still probably feel like they can get good day 2 value. And again, they come into today with 4 picks. They have the 2nd round pick and then 3 third-round picks. Not to mention, again, they have 2 4th-round picks tomorrow. So they do have the draft capital to shift, to move. And I know we can talk a little bit more about the positions of need and what the Steelers are going to look to do today. But Adam Schefter already reported last night that, you know, the Niners and the Bills and some of the other teams with the first couple picks of this evening have already begun receiving trade calls. So you have to think the Steelers are probably having some conversations and reaching out and making some phone calls to see. I mean, again, if you can trade up and get Denzel Boston, this quells a lot. Yeah. And you say, okay, you got a really good receiver because you didn't even anticipate Lemon being there. I know, of course, again, the optics are what they are at this point. If that video also doesn't come out, this is an entirely different conversation.
If there isn't a phone call made by Omar Khan maybe a little too soon. I mean, that's how confident he was. To call that far ahead before you're truly on the clock, that's how much confidence he had that what transpired was not going to. And Denzel Boston as well was a top 30 visit here. So that could be a fit. And at the same time, you know, there were many of us that thought Makai Lemon was not going to be available at all. And then there was, you know, there is that drop off between like the Omar Coopers, Denzel Bostons, the Casey Concepcion. So we'll see how it all pans out. Lots to talk about. We have a very special guest that just arrived on set. So we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Pitt head coach Pat Narduzzi will be joining us right here on Inside the Draft. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up. And taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard. Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazik and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News. Channel 11 News, live at 4, 5, and 6. The biggest local stories from neighborhood to neighborhood, impacting you the most. Breaking news. First, the experienced team asking tough questions, digging for answers, and getting the facts to keep you informed and safe. Every day, count on Channel 11 News at 4, 5, and 6.
When weather's on the way, Severe Weather Team 11's priority is to keep you safe. Storms can bring heavy rain, hail, and strong winds, so it's important for us to get it right. Our experienced team tracks the specific timing of storms and potential impact where you live. With us, when it's urgent, you will know, and we'll constantly keep you updated.
When weather is on the way, count on Severe Weather Team 11 on Channel 11 News.
45 seconds. I'm going to be ready to go, Mike.
And welcome back to Inside the Draft. I'm Jenna Harner, she's Shelby Cassesi, and we are joined by a very special guest, Pitt football head coach Pat Narduzzi. Pat, thanks so much for taking some time out of what is a very busy schedule for you this week as well to join us here.
Hey, appreciate you having me on your podcast today. It's always busy. There's always something going on in our building, and obviously a lot going in the Steelers building.
Yeah. It's a massive weekend, of course, here in Pittsburgh, the NFL draft, and I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about some of your guys that are expecting to hear their name called this weekend. How exciting is it for you as a head coach to see the players you work with day in, day out get this life-changing moment?
You know, it's exciting. It really is. I mean, this is what they all work for. I mean, we work to win every year and try to win a championship and win every Saturday afternoon, but in the end, you know, after 3 or 4 years, these kids get to that point where this is what they look forward to. It's what they work every day for. And I think, you know, as a coach, it's always a proud moment. You know, whether it's a Kenny Pickett being a first rounder or a guy being in a 5th round and then go making a team, or even Donovan McMillan last year, who was a free agent, then makes the Cleveland Browns. I mean, I think as a coach, it's kind of, you know, what you do when you go on the road recruiting and you sit in somebody's home and say, hey, this is what we're going to do for your son. We're going to try to develop you and take you to the next level. And then watching that work daily pay off in the end on draft day.
And you mentioned some of those guys. I look at the banners back there with all kinds of different names of players that have moved on to the next level from Pitt. What is it about this program that is just so good at finding that talent and developing them into NFL caliber players?
You know, Shelby, I'd say it's evaluation. I mean, I think so much goes into evaluation. I think some people cut corners on evaluating, but we're going to look at the player. We're not looking at how many stars they have. You know, they get, you know, rankings from 1 to 5 stars. We're not looking at the stars. We're looking at, like, you know, what's the makeup of that individual. It's not just what's on video, but what's in the classroom, what kind of character they have, because character wins. And if you got a guy that has a work ethic that comes in here and it was brought up the right way by mom and dad, you know, you can do a lot more with those individuals as opposed to someone that maybe doesn't have that background. You know, who's going to be a fast starter here as a student athlete, and then, you know, those guys pay off in the end. We've done a great job. You know, in the ACC, we are second most draft picks in the last 5 years, which is crazy. You know, we're at 20 draft picks, and 17 of those are really high school players. They're not transfers we're bringing in. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. A lot of people are bringing in, you know, buying players, bringing them in for a year, and then they get drafted. Well, you know, they didn't really develop them. They purchased them. And we try to develop our guys here.
What's it like for you seeing their development kind of as things progressed? And when, you know, obviously you know these guys and the talent that they have coming in, but when you see that kind of, you know, from year 1 to year 2 and it get to the point where it's, you know, hey, these guys are going to go to the draft. What's that like for you working through that process?
You know, it's a gradual process. You know, you don't see them from the freshman year to the senior year, so it's not this big drastic improvement. You're seeing little improvements from whether it's fall camp to spring ball into winter conditioning. So you're seeing those small developments, but you know, everybody develops at a different age. I'll never forget probably, what is it, 2021, probably about the 10-yard line over here. Kalijah Cansey in the middle of the season, I said, listen, Kalijah, you're going to be a first rounder. You're not going to graduate, and you're going to just have to start to mentally prepare yourself for the next level. And by God, he was a first rounder and went. You kind of know when you see those guys, and you know, we expect big things out of Kyle Lewis. You know, hopefully today he comes off that board. You know, but you know, anything can happen. You know, Desmond Reed's another guy that you know, we have high hopes for. We hope he gets drafted this weekend, and then we'll see what kind of things happen with free agency.
Certainly keeping an eye on Kyle Lewis today for sure, and wishing the best to him. What specifically have you seen out of him these last couple of years that has put him in this position to potentially be called today?
Yeah, I think, you know, the NFL's looking obviously at his talent, but I think the other thing that sets him apart, he's a worker, okay? Not on the field, not even the physical work, because everybody works on the field, right? Everybody's running around tackling, but like the work he puts in the classroom, that to me sets him apart. He's different than a lot of guys I've seen. There's guys with more talent that don't put in the work, but he's a guy that puts his work in. I just think that, you know, the amount of work he puts into, you know, watching videotape and preparing mentally for his game where he can make plays, I think that's what sets him apart.
I loved when we talked with him at the Combine, and he kind of walked us through the process of him, how he watches film, and the fact that, you know, he was dealing with injuries early in his career, so he was always in the facility early getting treatment, rehabbing, and just kind of that was what set the tone for him to move forward. What was that like, just kind of, you know, you talked about it as well, just seeing him dive in to all all the film and just being that film study guy. How did you see him grow through that process?
Yeah, I mean, you see it in the video room. I mean, you see it in the video room by watching him, but then you see it on the tape. I mean, there's formation recognition, backfield recognition, you know, wide receiver split recognition. I mean, he can play safety, he can play linebacker. It's all those little details. And I always say the smarter guys on the field will make plays before that really talented kid that's playing every formation like it's the same. And that's what sets him apart.
You know, talking about evaluating the whole player and finding these guys, you know, aside from their ranking, Des Reed is definitely one of those guys that you found and came here, made a quick first impression, obviously dealt with the injuries last year, but also has the potential to be on an NFL roster. What was his process like to get to this point, and how did you see him fight through that adversity? I know he wasn't playing healthy the whole time last year.
Yeah, he wasn't healthy at all, really. I mean, he had a couple good games. I mean, you know, everybody goes back and remembers that Florida State game. That's the potential he has as a skilled guy, as an athlete that can do a lot of different things in the punt return game, the kick return game. But, you know, I think really, you know, his injuries really, you know, held him back from being really who he could be. And you hope that's all behind him and he can stay healthy and get to the NFL. But, you know, he came here as a really good player. He got stronger, he got faster, and his knowledge of the game got better. We just wish we could have kept him on the field a little longer.
Yeah. How have you seen his character, too? You know, I remember going back to some of the events that he did with, you know, all these great community organizations. How have you seen him from a character perspective?
Yeah, Des Reed, he's an incredible human being. I tell you, he's fun to be around every day, and I think that's the next thing coaches in the NFL are going to look at. You know, besides the health aspect, is who do they want to coach? I mean, you know, I think, you know, him and Kyle are two guys that you're going to enjoy being around every day. And, you know, we've all been around miserable people, right? Sometimes unfortunately, we work with them, you know, they're two guys that you're going to be loving to work with. Any position coach is going to love to have those guys in the room.
I know you are busy on the recruiting circuit right now, meeting with prospects, and fortunate to be in an area like Western Pennsylvania where there's so much talent in the high school game here. What is it like to recruit in this area? I know you guys like to specialize in finding these WPIAL players. What is your experience like dealing with the talent in this area and hopefully making them Pitt Panthers?
Yeah, we're trying to get as many talented guys we can from Western Pennsylvania. It's never easy because everybody's coming in here to try to steal them as well. So the competition is great, and that's why we spread our net, you know, wide. I mean, we're going to go into Ohio and try to get the best out of there. We're going to get into New Jersey, New York, and the DMV. And then we're going to head down south into, you know, into Texas, you know, Georgia and Florida. But, you know, the kids in this area are, you know, primary. And again, the one important thing, we've had more success with WPIAL players than anybody in the country, period. We got all the stats prove that. But we're not going to always land them all. I mean, it's just, that's the reality of it. You know, some people just want to get away and go away to college, and that's fine, but we'll go find our guys. But the ones we do get, we'll make sure that we make the best of it, and if we don't get them here, we're going to find them somewhere, and that's the beauty of it.
You mentioned the players, even just last handful of years, that have gone on to have NFL careers. And I think seeing the example that they've set is such an important thing. Again, going back to Kyle Lewis's interview at the Combine, he talked about Makai Lemon and just how much of an example he was for him, how much of a leader he was, how much of a resource he's been as he's leaned on him throughout this entire draft process. How crucial is it for you to have those guys setting the foundation for, you know, what this program wants to be about and setting the example of, you know, hey, look, I put all the work and I did everything. You can be that way too. You can get this opportunity to play at the next level.
I mean, that's what all is. Those guys that played before you are your leaders, whether it's Demar Hamlin, everybody watching what Demar did, and Dane Jackson did, and you know, Spasier is certainly one of those guys, and Patrick Jones at defensive end. I mean, you know, Kenny Pickett at quarterback. I mean, I hope Mason says, you know, what was Kenny like going into his second year? And so, I mean, all those players before are leaders for our younger players to watch, and they know who they are. Matter of fact, one of the things we do during fall camp is we'll watch, you know, what Kyle Lewis is doing in preseason camp. So we're putting them up on the screen in fall camp in August. You know, after the first preseason game, we'll pull all the good plays that they have, and we'll watch it as a team. So it's another one of those, hey, that's where I want to go, and that's who I want to be like.
Talk about Mason Heinjoy. You guys just wrapped your spring session as well. What growth have you seen from him in this, you know, little time that you've known him that makes you confident heading into year 2 for him?
Yeah, I feel as confident as I've ever felt with what Mason is bringing it to the table. You know, his preparation, he's like Kyle Lewis, maybe times 2 or 3, because of that quarterback position you have to be. When he took his start last year, game 5, that guy was in the office at 6:30 in the morning. and didn't leave till 8 p.m. That's different. I don't know if I've seen a quarterback since I've been here, put the work in like he has in the video room. But he's in there all the time. I was in there yesterday. I mean, they're in finals week, getting prepared, but like he's in there eating lunch and watching videotape. It's like, what are you doing in here? But that's what he just loves being in there. He loves the coaches, loves Coach Bell. Jake, his graduate assistant quarterback coach. He's just in there all the time, and he has made major improvements. It's going to be fun to watch in 2026. Get your tickets.
Definitely not an easy ask for a freshman to do that. But what gave you the confidence at that moment to say you're heading in and we're rolling with you?
Mason gave us the confidence. I mean, I think, just talking with our players this week, just going through exit interviews of spring ball in the spring semester, our players saw it last year. I had an offensive lineman yesterday, Gio Cooley, kid from Erie, PA, said, Coach, I knew that guy was going to be a great player in fall camp. He whistled a ball through my ear, and I was like, well, I haven't heard a ball whistle by my head go that fast. I mean, so they kind of knew. But the one thing you don't know, the unknown, is when you make that decision as a head coach, what's he gonna react like on game day? You never know. And but obviously he did a heck of a job, and he's only going to get better as far as that goes.
I know his leadership is something you talk about too, because it's a young guy, a true freshman, surrounded by guys that are older than him, guys that have more experience than him, and that can sometimes be a little bit of a unique factor. And I think that's something that you want to see him grow more in as well. How do you see him develop in that way, and how have you seen that aspect of his game grow? And is it just also the work he's putting in? Are his teammates seeing, hey, you're doing this, you're leading not only by example, but vocally too?
Yeah, I think, certainly all of our leaders or captains, have to make an impact on the field. So he's made the impact on the field, but he's a natural leader. He doesn't have to try. That's the crazy thing. I've tried to teach guys how to lead, and it's kind of robotic. He's not robotic at all in the leadership capacity. He's a guy that just naturally does it. I mean, out in the middle of the winter when it was about 22 degrees out after practice, I saw him gather the entire team together and talk to them for about 3 minutes. I'm like, whoa, haven't heard that for a while. And that's, again, it's not fake. It's real, and I think it just comes from his heart, and he's a natural leader, and there's not a lot of those guys out there nowadays.
The Pitt program as a whole, 11 Hall of Famers. You figure Aaron Donald's going to be coming down the pipeline here not too long from now. It's tied for third most in all of college football for Hall of Famers to move ahead. How proud does that make you to be a part of that legacy and potentially coach a few guys that will add to that list one day?
No question about it. I mein, you think, you look up here at these retired jerseys and the banners in this building, to think, I've got people, texting me that stuff all the time saying, I can't believe it. Wow, I had no idea. Our new special teams coordinator, coaching the NFL 21 years, like, I had no idea that you had this type of, leadership and skill at this university. So, what we've done, forged in the past, is something that we're going to continue to work on, try to get a few more of those and try to surpass and get number one.
And I know, obviously, this year, Larry Fitzgerald, a big year for him going into the Hall. What is your relationship like with him? We see him come back here quite often. How do you describe the relationship the two of you have?
We got a great I got a great relationship with all the former players. Matter of fact, I had a function last night, on the north side there. Larry's a great guy. We text constantly during the season. He's all about Pitt. We wish we could have landed his son here, every individual's got to make those decisions for themselves. And Larry's a Pitt man through and through, and he loves it here. Had an opportunity to sit down and have dinner with him at the Chancellor's house back when he spoke at the commencement last year. So Larry will do anything for Pitt.
And he's been so vocal about the role this city, the role Pitt has played in his success. How proud will it make you come Hall of Fame induction day here later this summer when you see him? And I'm sure he will have plenty of nice things to say about this program.
No doubt about it. That's a fun day, and I usually slip. We're in the middle of camp at that time, or maybe at the beginning of it. But I've slipped away for Revis's. Who was before that? Was the one I've been to two, Jimbo Covert. So this will be the third one I've been here. I've been head coach for 11 years. I get to go to the Hall of Fame 3 times to watch that, and it's the only time I've ever been to Canton for the induction. So. Obviously, as a little kid, I used to walk through the halls and see Canton, but to be able to go there, 3 times in 11 years to watch former Pitt players be inducted and hear what they have to say about how they were brought up in this Pitt tradition is pretty special.
And, you know, Pitt's always in the spotlight in those type of events, but your program, the Steelers, the city of Pittsburgh is on full display this weekend. Just how cool is it to see Pittsburgh be the center of the football universe this weekend?
No question. How about that crowd breaking records last night? I mean, I didn't go down there. I didn't want to, you know, I'd rather watch it. I'd rather watch it on TV, watch all the highlights and see these players. It's almost, you know, another way of evaluating and seeing what they look like that are being taken in the first round. But, you know, just looking at the TV and watching, you know, the crowds that, you know, went down there to see that. It's incredible. And again, Pittsburgh has put on a show. I think just, I mean, everything, the preparation. Now, this didn't happen overnight. I mean, we got our spring game shut down pretty much to have fans for the preparation for this. So it's all been worthwhile, you know, I think, for the city of Pittsburgh to be able to see the show that's put on. And again, Pittsburgh has put on a great show, and 2 more days to go.
What will today look like for you? Are you in touch with Kyle Lewis? What does, when you have a player that could hear their name called over the course of the 3 days, what does that look like for you?
I called him yesterday afternoon and said, Kyle, I'm not going to bug you. Hey, did you hear anything? Did you hear anything? I'm not going to be that guy, but I just said, hey, you know, we're here for you. We're praying for you. We're hoping for the best, and understand it only takes one team to draft you, and then you got to go put the work in. But I said, you need anything during the draft process. Again, he's got an agent. I mean, he's paying an agent to do, you know, all his work, but anything. And I said, if anybody calls me, I'll let you know. You know, there's times where I'll get that call on, you know, maybe it's an hour before. Hey, what do you think about this guy? I'll never forget Brian O'Neill. I got a call from the offense coordinator before they took him and said, hey, are you sure? I'm like 100% sure. You're doing pretty good. And Nathan Peter was the other one that Sean McDermott called me in the staff room on a Saturday morning, I think it was. I guess it might have been day 3, and said, hey, we're thinking about, tell us about Nathan Peterman. But you don't get a ton of those calls on draft day. So, but if I get that call tonight, I hope I do. I'd love to be involved.
But you still got to keep the cell phone close on days like
close
this.
Every day.
All the time.
Hey, cell phone never leaves your hip as a college football coach nowadays. Whether it's one of your players, you know, your current players, one of your guys that are draftable or recruit, you know, you're always on.
Well, Pat, thank you so much for taking some time out of your incredibly busy schedule to join us. We were thrilled to have you. Thanks for your insight, and we just appreciate you being here.
You got it. Appreciate you having me on, and let's have a great day, too. Let's get Kyle Lewis drafted today.
Let's get Kyle Lewis drafted. You heard it from him. Thanks so much for joining us on Inside the Draft. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up, and taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard. Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazik and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News. Channel 11 News, live at 4, 5, and 6. The biggest local stories from neighborhood to neighborhood, impacting you the most. Breaking news. First, the experienced team asking tough questions, digging for answers, and getting the facts to keep you informed and safe. Every day, count on Channel 11 News at 4, 5, and 6.
When weather's on the way, Severe Weather Team 11's priority is to keep you safe. Storms can bring heavy rain, hail, and strong winds, so it's important for us to get it right. Our experienced team tracks the specific timing of storms and potential impact where you live. With us, when it's urgent, you will know, and we'll constantly keep you updated.
When weather is on the way, count on Severe Weather Team 11 on Channel 11 News.
And welcome Welcome back to Inside the Draft. You just heard from Pitt head coach Pat Narduzzi. We thank him so much for taking some time and the insight he gave. We were just chatting with him in between the break.
I thought he was going to hang around for another block.
I was ready to sit and talk more with him. He provides so much insight. He's so wonderful to talk to.
We were talking about, you know, the Steelers and their situation from last night, but he and I said, isn't it insane that you know, Max Iheanachor didn't play a down of football until JUCO, and he said, yeah, that can be a good thing because bad habits didn't have the time to develop. So I thought that was some interesting insight from a college coach.
No, very much so. And you can sense how excited he is, too, for some of his guys. And we'll talk about some of the Pitt players later on in this show that have the potential to hear their name called tonight and tomorrow. But you can sense his excitement for draft weekend and for what this means. And, of course, you know, all the Hall of Famers this program has produced. It is staggering to just sit and look at the numbers. And, you know, we're here in the Steelers facility, but there's a bunch of Pitt banners as well of just all the retired jerseys. Mike Ditka, Larry Fitzgerald, Tony Dorsett, Dan Marino. I mean, this list is astounding, and you see why this Pitt program year after year after year churns out NFL talent.
Yeah, and something interesting for people, we're going to head into day 2 of the draft here. You're going to see a lot of familiar Pitt Panthers probably on the stage today. Not just drafting for the Steelers, but they, you know, released a list of names who will be announcing picks, and all across the league there's going to be Pitt connections, and in West Virginia connections and Penn State connections, but obviously Pittsburgh, being that the draft is here, announcing picks. I think we're going to have a James Conner sighting potentially today. So it really is an exciting prospect to be a Pitt Panther because of the way they're able to find this talent. You know, unfortunately, they're not going to get the 4- and 5-star recruits.
No.
NIL adds a really strange wrinkle to the entire thing. So they are having to recruit in a different way. They are having to find the JUCO talent. They are having to kind of find the diamond in the rough from time to time. But they're taking these guys and they're flipping them and they're making NFL talent.
And I love what Pat Narduzzi said, too, where he emphasized so much about the development of these guys. You know, these aren't players that they're just, you know, spending this insane amount of NIL money on to bring them in for a year, possibly 2, if that. They are drafting and developing, as we're saying, but they are developing guys through this system so that they are as ready as they can be for the NFL, and then they go on to have very fruitful, very long NFL careers, as we hope a lot of them do.
I was glad we got the chance to talk about Mason Iheanachor as well, because that is, I mean, I just think about when I was the age of what a lot of these college players, or even just the guys that got drafted last night, how would I handle at 18, 19 years old saying, my coach telling me, hey, you're heading in, and now down the road, you're going to be our starter as well. I mean, probably not well, to be honest, but they would not have handled it well. But Mason Iheanachor really passed that test with flying colors. Not only that, he stayed loyal to the program. I'm sure he got the phone calls.
Oh, absolutely.
And the offers to, you know, find a different home.
To go elsewhere.
Stayed at Pitt, will be able to start another year here. And I'm really interested to see his growth from year to year, because I'm sure he spent the offseason doing what he needed to do to get in better shape, doing what he needed to do to play a full college football season. Guys always talk about that transition of how much longer the year is. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he looks like in his sophomore season. But really just a hard place to put a freshman in. And he really didn't blink, didn't blink in the face of adversity, as Mike Tomlin would say.
No, and I think this year, too, you expect a lot from him. But as what Pat Narduzzi was telling us, too, that pressure doesn't even seem to faze him. I don't think that there will be any sort of that. I think he'll want to perform and as well as he can and help the team win, but it's not this pressure of, oh, I have to come in and be this, you know, insane talent for this team. Like, he can just build on what he did the season ago, and hopefully we see a better result, of course. But there was a lot of momentum at the end of last season to be optimistic about what this Pitt team can look like this year.
I think so. And of course, Kyle Lewis, a name you could hear today. You actually, I know we're going to talk about this later, but you got to talk to him at the Combine. He was obviously here for Pro Day as well. What have you seen in your conversations with him about what makes him good at the next level?
His professionalism, to me, was something that stands out so much. And he was so honest and candid. I mean, we talked with him at the Combine at these podiums, and it can be a very intimidating type of moment. You have a mass of reporters from not only the Pitt beat, but from national beats and from all other teams. Hey, you know, the Detroit Lions might draft you. The Chicago Bears might look, teams like that. Just rapid fire question after question, and you could just see his poise. You could see the way he took a moment to hear the question, process it, and give a very honest, a very candid, but a very professional answer. And I think that goes back to what we were talking with Pat Narduzzi about. But he said Servassier Dennis, who was 2 years ahead of him, if I believe my math is correct, there at Pitt, who did the same thing, made the position switch that Kyle Lewis did. Servassier Dennis has really kind of laid the foundation for him, and he was like, Kyle Lewis was saying, I've been leaning on him a lot as a big resource. I've been picking his brain, saying, how do I go through this draft process? What are the, best ways for me to do X, Y, and Z? And I loved, too, he called this part, from the combine to draft weekend, he called it the fourth quarter. So he's like, I just have to finish the fourth quarter strong. And you love the little,
football personality.
Yes, he had to throw that in there. But you could just sense his professionalism and his confidence in himself. All of these players tell us, I'm going to be whatever this team needs me to be, but his positional versatility and flexibility as both a linebacker and a safety is going to be very interesting. So I just really loved hearing everything he had to say about, expressing his confidence, but not coming off as there wasn't arrogance. It was confidence, but not arrogance.
Well, high hopes for him. Maybe we'll hear his name today. And he was also, and now the Steelers did host him for a top 30 visit. It was a local visit, though, so it doesn't count against those numbers. 30. But, would be interesting to see him land as a Steeler, but maybe somewhere else out there we'll find a home for him. So
we'll dive into a little bit more with him. You'll hear from him at the Combine coming up in a little while. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Max Iheanachor's junior college coach will be joining us over the phone. Really excited to talk with him and have this conversation.
A lot to learn about.
A lot to learn. Don't go anywhere. This is Inside the Draft.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up. And taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard. Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazik and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News. Channel 11 News, live at 4, 5, and 6. The biggest local stories from neighborhood to neighborhood, impacting you the most. Breaking news. First, the experienced team asking tough questions, digging for answers, and getting the facts to keep you informed and safe. Every day, count on Channel 11 News at 4, 5, and 6.
When weather's on the way, Severe Weather Team 11's priority is to keep you safe. Storms can bring heavy rain, hail, and strong winds, so it's important for us to get it right. Our experienced team tracks the specific timing of storms and potential impact where you live. With us, when it's urgent, you will know, and we'll constantly keep you updated.
When weather is on the way, count on Severe Weather Team 11 on Channel 11 News.
And welcome back to Inside the Draft. I'm Jenna Harner. She's Shelby Cassesi. And Shelby, we have a very special guest set to join us right now.
Yes, we are on the phone with Bobby Godinez. He was Max Iheanachor's football coach at East Los Angeles College, junior college, before, of course, Max moved on to Arizona State University, where the Steelers drafted him out of last night. Bobby, can you hear us? Good afternoon here. Good morning out in Los Angeles.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon. I'm here and excited.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I believe if what I understood Max saying last night, you were in the room last night when he got that phone call from the Steelers, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now that you've had a little time to process, what was that moment like to see Max get that phone call? He's a first-rounder with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely surreal. Just knowing where Max came from and where he started, and the fact that, you know, we found him at such an infant stage of his athletic career, and we're able to kind of help to guide him through all the way leading up to that moment. And, you know, for me as a coach and, you know, as a mentor, it fulfilled my heart and kind of my mission as a coach, just being able to see, you know, a landing spot for him, you know, and we believed in him from the moment I laid eyes on him on the basketball court to that point yesterday. It just took trust and hard work from Max to be able to really see him to that point. And so it was just a really fulfilling moment for myself and all the staff at East Los Angeles College.
That had to be just the most incredible moment, and just a culmination of all the hard work he's put in and all the hard work you and your staff put into. I know you mentioned on the basketball court, obviously. When and how did he first get on your radar? And, you know, looking at him, how did you say, hey, this guy has real potential here on the football field, a sport he's never played in his life?
Yeah, you know, being here at East Los Angeles College, you really got to get creative at this level and trying to find unique talents to fulfill your rosters. And, you know, offensive linemen are really hard to come by at any level. And our level is, you know, probably the hardest to find. And so, you know, for me, I always try to get creative in finding unique talent. And I had a friend who was a travel basketball coach, runs a program called Elevate in Los Angeles. And I always told him, hey, if you have any bigger kids that maybe, you know, good athletes, but maybe aren't going to be, you know, potential Division I basketball players, obviously they have the skill sets and the size to transition to other sports, just let me know. And when he got Max, he called me right away and said, hey, I think I got one. And so I went to one of their games, and I said, you know, after about 20 seconds, I said, sub him out, send him with me. I'm taking him over to ELAC, and we're going to run him through a couple drills. And so we were able to just kind of, you know, I had him take about 1 or 2 positive steps in each direction. And I just knew, you know, he's 6'6" and change. And at the time, he was only maybe about 255 pounds. But his body frame, his lower half was just really put together. And I knew he could put on weight to be able to carry, to keep his athleticism as well. And it's the perfect, you know, ideal situation for an offensive tackle. He just didn't know that that's what he was, you know. And so our job, you know, as a staff here was to get him acclimated to the sport as quickly as possible, help him to feel comfortable, and show him the light at the end of the tunnel. And it wasn't easy, but at least, you know, we were able to get him into his next phase of college football.
Those early conversations with him and his family had to be pretty unique, given the fact that he had never played a down of football. And he even told us last night, you know, his parents weren't exactly on board with him transitioning to football in college in that sense. So what were those early conversations like with Max, with his family, to get them on board with this process?
Yeah, so at first, you know, I just told Max, you know, trust me. You're gonna make a living doing this someday if you just trust me and stick with it. And so he did, and he started going. And about halfway through the year, he looked at me because he wasn't very good. You know, naturally, you're playing a college football sport against college football players, and you don't even know if the ball is stuffed or blown up. You know, and so, you know, he's trying to navigate through the sport while other players are trying to get scholarships for sport they've played for the last 15 years. And you know, he got a little frustrated with it, and there was a time in the middle of the season he came to me and he said, you know, Coach, I love you to death, but this just isn't for me. I just don't think I'm a football player. My mom says I should just go get a job and just finish school. You know, I gave basketball a chance and I gave football a chance. And I said, you tell your mom that she's going to thank me because I am not letting you quit, and I'm not even letting you leave this practice right now. So get your butt in the locker room, get dressed, and meet me out there. And, you know, I just kind of had to help him to understand that in football, it's always going to be a process, but the skill sets are different than they are in different sports where, you know, a baseball or basketball where, you know, the skill level is something that you have to develop with years of practice. And in football, you can take a good athlete and really put them into football shape pretty quickly and get something good out of them if you know what you're doing. And I just asked him to trust me, and I told him to tell his mom and dad the same thing, that I would take care of him and that I promised it would work out for him. And at the time, even my coaches, they had kind of second-guessed right off the bat and said, we can't even play this kid. He's going the wrong way, and he doesn't know what to do. And I looked at them, and I said, that kid is going to play, he's going to start, and he's going to play every single down for us, because that kid's going to be a first-round draft pick someday. And they trusted me as well, so it worked out. Luckily, I was halfway correct.
What was your relationship like with him? And obviously we hear a little bit about, obviously you having to make sure he trusts you and instill a lot of confidence in him that, hey, you are going to get to this point. How do you describe the relationship the two of you have had and how it's transformed since you first saw him and brought him onto the football field?
I had to kind of be a form of a psychologist, a sports psychologist in a way, because I had to get to know him and what he wanted out of things. He's a reserved young man. He's not a real vocal, at the time, a vocal kid. And so, I had to try and navigate what, our conversations as to, what he was feeling and what he needed to know. And he didn't always know how to convey it to me in the appropriate way. And so I had to keep, and adjust my frame, my type of coaching, and to keep him with positive outlooks on things. And, some of my other coaches, they had to bring more out of him to get him more aggressive. So there's a big balance when it comes to football players in general, but especially someone that didn't grow up being coached like that. And so we had a great relationship. We always have. And I, I'm blessed and think that it'll be like that forever. But a lot of the times I just had to be honest with them, just to let them know, like, look, you're 6'6", 300 pounds now, and you're an athletically gifted talent. Trust me that that's going to be more than enough to get your education paid for. So do it and see where it takes you from there. And I knew his ceiling, but he didn't believe his ceiling just yet. And I just knew once we got him to Arizona State and we got him into a year-round football environment, that I knew he was going to take off. It was just a matter of convincing him to believe in himself. And once he did, the rest was history.
What was that turning point when you saw it click for him, when he really believed in himself and really saw, hey, this is a possibility for me at that next step?
There was a meeting in the midst of the year where the coaches were telling me, Max is starting to come along. We're starting to see what you're saying, Coach. This is during, I think it was maybe 2022 or 23. But, he's still going the wrong way. He's still doing this, but I think he's getting the grasp of it. And so I went into the meeting room and I said, Max, it was an offensive line meeting room. And I said, Max, stand up. And he stands up. And I said, here's a pen. I said, you go up there and draw up your favorite run play. And he looks at me, and my coaches look at me like, oh crap, this might not go very well. And he walked over and he tried his best, and it looked like, a young kid scribbling on their, notebook in class. It just didn't look very good. And at that moment, I looked at everybody in that room and I said, it is your job, Max. It is your job, Coach. It is your job to make sure he knows what we are running as quickly as humanly possible. That's what we're focused on. We don't have to worry about his athletically, gifted talent. We don't have to teach him to be fast or big or strong. We have to make sure he knows the concepts of football. And so we kind of re-honed in on the mental part of the game probably after about week 3. And once he started to grasp the concept of, pass protection and what we were asking him to do, I mean, it was like an exponential growth from then on. And that's when he started to really figure out, hey, I can really do this, and I can really do this at the next level. And the recruitment came right after. And then, that'll make a kid, buy himself a lot more time when he realizes, wow, there's a lot of people taking a lot of interest in me. And, and then there's just that communication from then on, just keeping him on the right path and letting him know, like, this is real. And yeah, once he got the grasp of the mental part of it, he took off.
We are speaking with Bobby Godinez. He was Max Iheanachor's junior college coach at East Los Angeles College. You talk about the mental aspect there, but the physical aspect of his development is just so incredible to read about. He comes to you guys in 2021, plays one game, as you've said, is running the wrong way, is not able to draw up a play. He's at Arizona State by 2023, and he's a first-round draft pick in 2026. From a physical perspective, to what do you owe the just pace of that development over 5 years?
Yeah, I have had a lot of experience with body types. Like I said, we have to get really creative here at East Los Angeles. And so I'm very big into finding good, tall body types and really kind of looking past what their experience within the sport bring, you know. And Max obviously had the frame at 250 pounds. And I told him, I said, look, I'm going to get you there, but you're, again, going to have to trust me. And I can't tell you how many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches I made him eat every single day, how many pastries I made him and whatever we could find, and gave him a diet plan and said, look, it's an equation. This is how much you need to eat every single day, and I'm going to be calling and checking up on you every single day and making sure you're eating something. And, you know, before, in no time, I mean, he was 290 pounds, and you know, that 6'6", 290 pounds is what it looks like at that next level. And he eventually got up to 315, and that's what it looks like now. And so, you know, I know consistency for anything, you know, any type of skill is the key. And it's the same thing with, you know, developing your body. It's consistency working out and consistency with your diet. Sometimes they just don't know what that actually looks like. And so if there was anything that I was really going to take control of, it was force-feeding him almost literally.
How do you describe the type of player the Steelers are getting off the field? Or I should say the type of person the Steelers are getting off the field in Max?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I told his mom and dad last night, I mean, they can thank themselves for this product, this final product, because his upbringing was so strong. His parents were such an integral part of his life that it made coaching him a lot easier. You know, I mean, with junior college students, I mean, you get everybody from all different walks of life, and you really having to navigate upbringings. You know, for him, we didn't have to do that because he had such a strong family bond, you know. And so their support really, really pushed him through, and it made everything so much better with Max. I couldn't imagine finding a better individual on and off the field, you know, than Max. He's smart, charismatic. He's just a good person, you know. And so when trying to kind of evaluate someone to like an NFL level, I mean, those are the intangibles he needs, right? It's that character and that drive from a person. Well, he had that. You know, we never had an issue with him ever. As a matter of fact, we wanted him coming back as he did this past year to talk to our team about acting right and making sure that, you know, you persist and do all the things that he ended up doing, you know. And I can't speak enough about the type of person that Max is.
Yeah, when you have a situation like this, what does that do for a program like yours that you can use him as an example?
Oh, well, we're going to use it. I mean, you know,
as you should.
You know, it's funny enough. I have another one here right now that's, you know, about to sign a scholarship, and he's a little bit taller than Max and great size with just as much talent, and he's going to take the same path. And I got him, you know, with a couple of help from an assistant coach or two, but ultimately it was Max. He's a friend of Max's, and Max said, you got to go to ELAC. They do something that nobody else does, you know, puts their thumb on kids like us and sends us to the next level. And so he actually has already, you know, helped us to gain more talent from different walks of life that maybe didn't play football. I can't tell you how many kids have approached me from other sports, you know. And so with this mass amount of attention that we're getting right now, it's awesome because I know that there are so many other, you know, basketball players out there that are sitting there saying, shoot, I might not get this scholarship that I think, but I am 6'5", and I do think I can do something, you know, athletically and get paid to do it, you know, whether it's in college or the next level. And maybe they're taking a look at this story and saying, hey, let me give Coach a call and see if we can do the same, which we absolutely could.
Is there a moment or a memory that sticks out in your mind that just sums up Max in a whole, as a whole? I'm sure that's probably complicated to do.
Well, like I said, he was such a reserved kid. You didn't get a lot of, you know, reactions or responses. But I just remember, and I think one of my coaches posted it somewhere, where I said, you know, Max is the most athletic person on that side of the ball. Like, that's how I know how high he's going to go. And a couple of the O linemen and a couple of the D linemen were like, no, I'm faster than Max. I'm faster. You know, you can't outrun me. He's 320 pounds. And we lined him up on the line and raced him, and Max won, you know, and it was the first time we really saw the kind of elation from Max that, yeah, see, I'm proving you guys wrong. And it was something that we loved seeing because we wanted more of that emotion and that energy to help, you know, keeping his confidence going in the right direction. But it's one of the things I remember most. But I can't tell you there's no memory that I liked more than last night, giving him a big hug and him thanking me just for standing by him and making him stand and go through this, you know, and he knows just where he was at and what we had to talk. I mean, he sent me a text message right before his last game, you know, at Arizona State and thanked me, you know, and it's just, this is why you do it as a coach, because like I tell other coaches, sometimes you don't see the benefits from what you do on a daily basis until they're done, you know, and so to really see it when he's finishing college, but knowing that there's, you know, a lifetime of football still left for him. I mean, it was just such a great feeling. And so that I remember probably the most, those two here at the end.
Knowing his skill set and watching his development, where do you feel his ceiling is here in the NFL?
I mean, I watch a lot of football. I played at a high level. I've coached a lot of different athletes. He's as good as I've ever seen. And I just knowing his character, knowing his cerebral ability, and I know that's what, you know, you hear the commentators, you know, realizing, well, he's only got a couple of years of football under his belt, so he's going to have to learn protections and all these different things. I would contest that. That kid is brilliant. He already knows what most of those kids know, if not more. And like I said, his skill set, his athletic ability is so high. Once he gets in with an O-line coach, an offensive coordinator that can give him the information and knowledge to help him to continue to progress, he's an all-pro type of player. Like, that is what Pittsburgh is getting. And I can, beyond just a guarantee, that's what he's going to be, because he's got everything you could ever want. He's, to me, a top 5 pick in a top 25, top 32, you know, body, because of the fact that he just started to play 4 years ago or 3 years ago.
Well, Bobby, we thank you so much for your time, and just a big congratulations to you as well. We're going to get to speak with Max later on here at the Steelers facility today, and we're really looking forward to getting to know him as a person and as a player. So congratulations again. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of the weekend, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much. It was a pleasure.
All right, have a good one. Congratulations. What insight.
That was phenomenal insight there. I feel like Steelers fans are really going to like to hear from Max and like to learn all that they can. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to be talking some more about Max, some Steelers quarterbacks, all the fun things
We can't skip quarterbacks.
We can't skip. We have to talk about the quarterback situation. We are still here talking about Aaron Rodgers once again. This is Inside the Draft. We are going to be right back. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up. And taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazik and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News. Channel 11 News, live at 4, 5, and 6. The biggest local stories from neighborhood to neighborhood, impacting you the most. Breaking news. First, the experienced team asking tough questions, digging for answers, and getting the facts to keep you informed and safe. Every day, count on Channel 11 News at 4, 5, and 6.
When weather's on the way, Severe Weather Team 11's priority is to keep you safe. Storms can bring heavy rain, hail, and strong winds, so it's important for us to get it right. Our experienced team tracks the specific timing of storms and potential impact where you live. With us, when it's urgent, you will know, and we'll constantly keep you updated.
When weather is on the way, count on Severe Weather Team 11 on Channel 11 News.
And welcome back to Inside the Draft. We are live here at Steelers headquarters. Thanks so much for joining us on the WPXI Now streaming app and live on our YouTube page. I'm Jenna Harner. She's Shelby Cassesi. Shelby, we just talked with Max Iheanachor's why am I spacing on
JUCO coach.
Yeah, JUCO coach. I was going to say ELCU, and then my brain got his junior college coach. And we got such wonderful insight. His story to me is just so fascinating.
It really is. I just can't wrap my mind around the fact that he played football for the very first time in 2021.
Yep.
Ran the wrong way, and this is what we just heard from Bobby Godinez, his coach there, who was integral in getting him into football. Just liked his size, had him do a couple of quick drills and said, come play football for me. And he was running the wrong way. He couldn't drop a play. And now he's a first rounder 5 years later. That journey to me, I mean, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about this pick, understandably so. But that journey alone to me is just incredibly impressive. And Bobby added so much color to that story that I don't think anyone else has had yet.
No, and I just loved the anecdote from him when Max came up to him at one point during practice early on and was basically ready to quit.
Yeah.
And he said, no, you need to trust me. You need to believe in me. I'm going to get you to where you want to go. You just have to stay the course.
Yeah.
And clearly he did, and look at where he is now. But I just think like little anecdotes like that we learned were just, it was such a really cool moment to just see all that Max has gone through to get up to this point, and the belief that Bobby and this coaching staff had in him to say, hey, we're going to help you get you there. You got to learn the sport, learn pass protection, everything that comes with being an offensive lineman, but the physical traits and just the raw athletic talent was there. And I think that's what the Steelers are also, you know, really leaning on is, you know, hey, he is going to be this, you know, prospect we're going to have to develop a little bit. But clearly the development has been so accelerated over the last 5-6 years up to this point in Max's football journey that the Steelers probably feel they can really tap into that and say, okay, now at the professional level with the resources they have, with the offensive staff they have, this is going to be something that they can develop in him and hopefully have him again. Bobby said, you know, he's going to be an all-pro one day, so maybe we'll circle back to this conversation.
He's seen the future on him numerous times now, so I guess if there's anyone to believe it, it's that guy for sure. But
very true.
Very, very unique insight. I really appreciated his time. I really appreciate the story, and I'm looking forward even more so, probably in the next 90 minutes or so, talking to Max, meeting him in person for the first time. I think he took the red eye from Los Angeles last night because he touched down here before 11 a.m.
Pretty early this morning.
I'm sure he's a little bit tired as well, but excited to meet him and learn a little bit more about his story because it really is an interesting one. And just the development in that amount of time again, the athleticism. Like, you are not doing that unless you are a true innate athlete, and that's what he is. So.
No, absolutely. And again, he's set to speak here at Steelers headquarters at 4 o'clock. So yeah, just about 90 minutes away. It's crazy. It's coming up so soon. He's probably, I haven't looked specifically on Twitter. Have they taken him around everywhere yet? Is he making all the Kennywood stops?
This is probably a pretty unique moment for that because of the draft being here.
Yeah. What, are they going to bring him out on the draft stage?
Yeah.
There are some interesting questions there. I do wonder. I did love he had to take the picture next to the Franco Harris statue at the airport. If you're not landing in Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh International Airport and taking a photo at the statue, well, what are you even doing here?
I know.
And I loved too the video. He came out to a lot of cheers, and he's signing footballs and signing trading cards. Getting to, we're actually looking at it right now too, taking that podium that they have set up at the airport now. I just, what an exciting moment and what a whirlwind of a last handful of hours. I hope he slept on the plane. I would not have been able to see.
I do not. No. I had no red eyes.
No, red eyes do not work for me. So we'll hear from him in a little bit, but I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Steelers quarterback situation, because there is the potential for the Steelers to draft a quarterback today. They do have, of course, the second-round pick as well as 3 third-round picks. They could potentially use one of those late third-round picks on a mid-round quarterback. I think they're probably going to wait a little bit, but all that saying, once again, it is the NFL draft for the second straight year. We are sitting here wondering if Aaron Rodgers will or will not be a part of this football team this season.
And it has felt like the goalposts continue to move from the Steelers' perspective. It was initially, well, we hope we have an answer. It was initially, it's not going to go as long as it did last year. And it has not yet. No. I believe Aaron Rodgers signed in early June. He was here for mandatory minicamp during the U.S. Open, so middle of June, as we remember. Always, it's been a fun last year here for the Channel 11 Sports Department. Was here in June, so it hasn't reached that point yet, but it was initially, we're hoping around free agency, and then it was, we're hoping before the draft, and then in the week leading up to the draft, it became apparent that wasn't going to happen. And then the commentary from the team was more about conversations continue to be positive. We still feel like we're in a great position. We're fine with where it's all at. You wouldn't expect, even if Aaron Rodgers had signed at this point, he would have been here this last week for that voluntary minicamp. Aaron Rodgers is not doing voluntary minicamps or voluntary workouts of any kind at his stage of his career, and that's perfectly common. But the frustrating part being is this round and round we go again. We expect him here at this point. He's not. Let's move the goalposts a little bit further out.
And it almost feels inevitable at this point too. Like, there are no other quarterbacks coming to the Steelers. There's no talks with anybody else, and it's not like Aaron Rodgers is turning around and going to any other team. It does truly seem like it's between Aaron Rodgers playing in Pittsburgh or Aaron Rodgers not playing. And I think the Steelers, again, they've reiterated so many times they feel comfortable with where he's at. Mike McCarthy and Rodgers, of course, having the history that they have going back to the Green Bay days, communicate quite often, once if not multiple times a week. I don't get the sense that if the Steelers didn't think Rodgers was coming, they would be saying all of this. They feel confident that at some point Aaron's going to decide, okay, I'm coming back. And truthfully, it just seems like he probably doesn't want to be here like he didn't want to be here last year for all the veteran, for all OTAs. And I don't think anyone would blame him if he came out and said, hey, I'm going to sign, I'm going to be a part of this team this season, I'm not coming till mandatory minicamp. I don't think fans would. I think fans are getting more frustrated with the will he, won't he. We're in the exact same situation. The fans are saying this, not me too, in the we. But, it's the exact same situation as a year ago. I think if it was just, hey, I'm coming, but not until this day, I don't think people would be nearly as frustrated.
My only concern being with your starting quarterback showing up late at this point. I know he's familiar with Mike McCarthy's system. I think that is the only reason Aaron Rodgers is considering playing this year is because Mike McCarthy was hired as the Steelers head coach. I don't think he was hired as the head coach for that reason, but I think if it would have been any other person and bringing in any other type of staff, because so much of Mike McCarthy's staff is guys from years past, from Green Bay, guys Aaron Rodgers knows. I think if that situation were any different, we would not be talking about Aaron Rodgers right now.
No, we would not.
We would be moving on to potentially a quarterback this year. We'd be talking a lot more about Will Howard potentially getting a bridge year to try and figure things out. And we'd be talking way more about 2027 quarterbacks. Yeah. But because Mike McCarthy's here, he's familiar with the offense, it feels like a seamless fit. But at the same time, you do have a new receiver in Michael Pittman Jr. You do have a new face in the running back room. These practices are valuable when you think about it in those terms. You saw him not be on the same page a lot of the time with Roman Wilson last year. So would some additional time in the offseason benefit, not benefit Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need the practice, but benefit him coming into a not new to him system, but a new system here in Pittsburgh with new faces around him? I think so. So I think that's my only little hitch in the plan to say, you know, Aaron, come whenever. But I think the Steelers do have some hope and anticipation that if and when he does come, there will be some OTA sessions that he can attend. And it's kind of maybe even designed that way because the Steelers have, you know, I believe it's 6 OTA sessions, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a number of OTA sessions. And then you have a mandatory minicamp. And then you have another round of OTA sessions. So if he shows up by mandatory minicamp, then it might be seamless to say, hey, you're here for the OTA sessions as well, and then everyone's happy. But that's where the question marks are for me right now.
And if it does not, for some wild reason, again, because the Steelers, it just feels almost inevitable, like we said. It feels like Aaron Rodgers at some point is going to say, hey, I'm going to be joining this team. I'm going to be a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers for another season. But if for some reason he decides, I'm walking away, this isn't what I'm envisioning, I don't want to be a part of this, then it seems like it will be, all signs point to Will Howard. And of course, Mason Rudolph's still in the quarterback room, both Mike McCarthy and Omar Khan confirming that during these little voluntary minicamp this past couple days that have been here at the Steelers headquarters on the south side, that both Howard and Mason have split the reps. So you can glean what you want to glean from that. But basically, if it's not Aaron Rodgers, it sure feels like the Steelers are going to at least look to attempt to say, hey, Will Howard, you have a chance here. We want to see what you're capable of. We want to see what you can do. And Mike McCarthy has spoken highly of Howard.
Very highly of him. First press conference, we got a Will Howard from Mike McCarthy. And a non-ironic Will Howard. That's just how it came out. But he's talked over and over again about how excited he is to develop Will Howard. How he loves in general just to develop quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers being one of those guys, Dak Prescott, of course. So he does have that track record of success. And I think, you know, Will Howard spent a lot of time last year watching from the sidelines. He was hurt beginning in training camp through most of the season. So is probably in a position where he's ready to start challenging himself a bit more physically, take a step in the right direction. In the meantime, if the Steelers do take a quarterback, a number of quarterbacks on the board still. Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson, the only 2 off the board last night. So you still have Garrett Nussmeier, Carson Beck, Drew Aller, which I know a lot of people around here have circled just because of the Penn State connection. Taylon Green from Arkansas, Cole Payton, North Dakota State. So could go a number of ways, but I wouldn't view that pick as anything more than a depth pick. I don't want to start hearing calls for Drew Aller to start. No. It's one of those things. We can't fall down this slippery slope. It's nothing more than a depth selection if it does happen. The Steelers feel their quarterback is in 2027. For a long time, they felt it was possibly this year. It didn't fall that way because the entire class imploded, essentially. But it could be a depth quarterback pick here either today or tomorrow. But right now, I do think Plan A continues to be Aaron Rodgers. Plan B is Will Howard. And the big Plan A is draft your guy next year.
Yeah, and that seems to be almost exactly the way that, you know, again, the Steelers came into this draft with 12 draft picks. They had so much capital, and they were set to draft that quarterback of the future. Obviously, the class didn't pan out this way. But I do think that the way that Mike McCarthy has spoken throughout, from, you know, I would say he did not speak at the Combine, but following the Combine, owners' meetings, and then in the last couple times we've had the chance to speak with him here, it does seem like they want to draft a quarterback in this year's draft, but he had some caveats. He said it has to be at the right time, which, again, we did not get the sense that they were going to be drafting Ty Simpson in the first round, but at the right time, and guys that have long arms and big hands, so that speaks to both.
Not the hands talk again.
We're doing it again. I know. As soon as I said that, I was like, oh, they're talking about Kenny Pickett all over again. But that speaks to Miami's Carson Beck and Penn State's Drew Aller. And then McCarthy said that he wants someone with a high floor versus a high ceiling. And to me, that very much pinpoints Carson Beck compared to Drew Aller, because Aller has all these traits. You know, he can put them together. I think that's what a lot of NFL teams that are going to look to take him in these mid to late rounds are going to hope is that he can develop, because he was one of those quarterbacks at a time that was talked about potentially being a first-round guy. Obviously, he has not panned out in that way, but I think a lot of teams can bank on, okay, you know, he has a lot of these physical traits and they hope they can develop him. Carson Beck has a lot of experience, and he's had those moments where he, you know, has been in those big games. He's been in the national championships. He's played for Georgia and for Miami and has been on the biggest stage in the sport. So to me, I could very much see them drafting Carson Beck. I just don't know entirely when, and if there's going to be a run on quarterbacks, if the Steelers are like, you know, hey, we might wait and pass. Aller and Beck, they both hosted for top 30 visits, as well as met with at the Combine. And then Taylon Green from Arkansas and Cole Payton from North Dakota State, they hosted as well. So an interesting four mid-round quarterbacks that they had some communication with throughout this process. So yeah, that'll be a little bit of an interesting factor to see what direction they potentially look to go. Maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow. We'll see.
And today and tomorrow are where the top 30 visits here shine.
Yes.
Because as we talked about yesterday, a lot of mid to late round picks were utilized on their top 30 visit. We didn't mention yet that this was one of the first times in recent memory that the Steelers did draft someone who they did not bring in for a top 30 visit. So a little bit of history in that regard last night. But today, tomorrow is where these top 30 visits are really going to shine. We'll probably see a lot more names come the Steelers' way that did make a stop here in Pittsburgh over the last month or so.
And I will be very intrigued to see who those players are. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, former NFL general manager, WPXI analyst Doug Whaley joins us over the phone. We have a lot to talk with him about, including all that went on in the Steelers' war room last night. Don't go anywhere. This is Inside the Draft.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up. And taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard. Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazic and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News. Channel 11 News, live at 4, 5, and 6. The biggest local stories from neighborhood to neighborhood, impacting you the most. Breaking news. First, the experienced team asking tough questions, digging for answers, and getting the facts to keep you informed and safe. Every day, count on Channel 11 News at 4, 5, and 6.
When weather's on the way, Severe Weather Team 11's priority is to keep you safe. Storms can bring heavy rain, hail, and strong winds, so it's important for us to get it right. Our experienced team tracks the specific timing of storms and potential impact where you live. With us, when it's urgent, you will know, and we'll constantly keep you updated.
When weather is on the way, count on Severe Weather Team 11 on Channel 11 News.
And welcome Welcome back to Inside the Draft. We're live here from Steelers headquarters. I'm Jenna Harner, joined by Shelby Cassesi. We have former NFL general manager Doug Whaley on the phone with us to break a lot of things down. Doug, I just want to first start off with your reaction to everything that happened tonight for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They initially select Max Iheanachor from Arizona State. There's some questions about why are they going offensive tackle at this position? And then the video comes out that they actually were on the phone with Makai Lemon from USC. They were set to draft him, and the Eagles jumped in front of the Cowboys with that 20th overall pick, trading up to select Lemon, who was on the phone with the Steelers when the Eagles were trying to call him.
First of all, thanks for having me. And being at that, I just want to say this. Being at the draft yesterday, I have to tip my cap to all the people that organized this event, from the NFL to the Steelers to the city of Pittsburgh. It was a great event, and I think it showcased Pittsburgh and the football fans here in Pittsburgh and ones that came in a very good light. So to switch to the Steelers, this is a very interesting to me how this went down, because I broke my teeth in this business with the Steelers and then carried a lot of those policies and procedures with me to Buffalo. And one of them was, you never called a player that you're thinking about drafting until the pick was in from the team ahead of you, for reasons just like this. So you wanted to make sure you knew exactly who was picked before you, and when you were on the clock, that's when you got the phone number ready and you're about to call the guy. To me, it's a risky thing to do. And because of what happened, it shows why the way that they've always done it before is the most efficient and a way to protect yourself from getting jumped or being on the phone with a player that you think you're going to get and not be able to get. For the pivot from receiver to tackle, I've actually been banging that drum from day one that I thought offensive line, tackle guard was a bigger need than receiver. When you look at their roster, they have two guys at wide receiver position with extensive NFL resumes that you can hang your hat on. With the injury to Bobby Godinez, how Dylan Cook fared against a top-notch defensive line in the playoffs against Houston, and then losing their left guard, that Seumalo, that to me, you have two question marks, or one question mark of not a starter at guard, and a possibility of two guys that you don't have that resume to say, I'm for sure going into the season with this. Add to the fact that you're going to have a 43-year-old quarterback that needs protection. And if you talk about the future, if you draft a quarterback next year, you're going to have a young quarterback that you ultimately need to protect and have a chance to grow into being able to look at coverage, decipher coverage, and be able to do that. So he needs more time than a veteran quarterback. And that's why, to me, the pivot to offensive tackle should have been their first need in the first place. And that's why I'm okay with the draft in the position that they went with.
Doug, does it give you pause that the Steelers utilized that first-round resource on someone as green as Max Iheanachor is, though?
What it does to me, it puts the onus on the coaching staff, because we'll see within the next 2 to 3 years if Mike McCarthy's staff does a better job of developing players than Mike Tomlin's staff. This guy has all the tools you are looking for, but what he doesn't have is the experience at the position, but more importantly, experience at the game of football. He didn't start playing until he got into junior college. And in history, there are very few players, and I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's a steep learning curve, and there's very few players that didn't grow up in the game and have those million reps that helps them to develop that instinct for the game, to be able to come in and pick up the game later in life, and that game, for the lack of a better term, ends up making sense to them. And this is going to be the biggest challenge, not only for, I call him IMAX, but not only for Max, but for the Steelers coaching staff, to be able to see if they can get him to translate all that physical ability to somebody that can produce at a high level on the highest stage of the NFL.
I think if we look back at the sequence that transpired last night, where again the Steelers were seemingly set to draft Makai Lemon, and then the Eagles jump in front of Dallas and they're forced to pivot a little bit. First, I want to make sure that we're ensuring to the people that this wasn't we just kind of picked the first type thing. Like, the Steelers had Iheanachor on their board, had him highly ranked, and said, okay, now that Makai Lemon's gone, like, this wasn't like pulling something out of a hat and saying, oh, well, we don't know where we go now type of situation, correct?
That is absolutely correct. They have a stack. They have their board stacked. And I'm sure they're following the same sequence when I was there. You stack your board, no matter what position, no matter what player, the best have you see them stacked from 1 to 21. So they probably had Makai Lemon maybe a notch better, or maybe they had him tied up and said, well, we think we can get Lemon now and get a tackle or an offensive lineman in the second round. And when Makai Lemon is gone, then they went to their next best player, and that was IMAX. So for people to think that they just were caught with their pants down saying, oh, Lemon's there, I don't know what we need to do. Let's look at this bag of names. Oh, IMAX, yeah, let's pick him. That's not the case. They spent too many hours. They have too much credibility in this league because of what they've done in past drafts and been around and done the drafting process so many times. It wasn't like they just pulled a name out of the hat. IMAX was on their board. He was high enough for them to consider at 21, and he was their pick. So I dislike that theory that they got caught with their pants down and they just came up with this name out of the blue. They had done extensive work on this guy, and they did extensive work developing their draft board, and he was on their board in consideration at 21.
And Doug, obviously the Steelers had Makai Lemon circled at the top of that board. That being the case, where do you think they went wrong, aside from, committing the faux pas of calling him a little bit too early? They're taking on some flack for maybe not being as aggressive as they could have been with 12 picks. Do you think they went wrong not going up to get him, or do you think they were just blindsided by an in-division trade between Dallas and Philadelphia?
Well, you can look at it two ways. They probably felt comfortable when he started sliding and looking at the teams that were in front of them, saying, well, none of these teams are really in wide receiver need, so we think we can be patient, hold our powder, and get the guy we want. But there's also school of thought that if you like a guy and you really like a guy and he's falling, and you have that powder to go get him, go get the guy and erase all doubt. So I'm in that school of be aggressive and go get the guy that you've targeted. But again, they did it with Joey Porter Jr. They held tight. They did it with Frazier. They held tight. They did it with Falatano. They held tight. So they've had success holding tight where they are and not moving up and getting the guy they want. So this time, sometimes you get the bull and sometimes the bull gets you. This time the bull got them. But again, they got a player that they had rated highly on the board. So they still got a player I think they feel very comfortable with at 21.
As a GM, are you trading in division during the draft like we saw Dallas and Philadelphia last night? That truly stunned me.
That is a stunner. And I personally, unless it was a situation where the draft compensation was that good that I couldn't turn down, then I wouldn't do it. Because if Makai Lemon comes in and torches the Cowboys for 2 games a year, gets them into the playoffs and takes them to the Super Bowl, and they do it at the expense of Dallas, it's going to look it's a tough situation for even an owner to come back and say, oh, we still think we did the right deal of trading in division. So that's very much a shocker in my thought. That's more of a shocker than Omar calling Lemon before they were on the clock.
For the Steelers today, from your perspective, what do they need to do to have a successful day 2 of this draft? They come in with 4 picks, 1 in the second round, 3 in the third round. There's already been talks of, some of the top teams set to pick in the first 5 picks of the second round, receiving some trade options. What do the Steelers need to do today to walk out of today saying, hey, we feel really good about the players we've brought in?
I would say target a wide receiver and don't get caught with your pants down now, package picks and go up and get them. They have 11 picks. The way their roster is constructed now, they shouldn't use all those 11 picks because those 11 picks aren't going to make the team. So package that powder and then go get targeted people that you like in positions of need. So I'm looking at this first pick. Go get a Denzel Boston. Package those picks up and go get them. If they think safety is the next biggest need, get a safety. And then maybe if you want to throw a flyer on a quarterback, that as well. But I do believe to this day they have to get a wide receiver, and they have to either get a safety or a corner in my position field or an offensive guard. 2 out of those 3 or 3 out of those 3. But I don't see why they need to use all 4 of those picks unless they feel comfortable holding tight. But again, they felt comfortable holding tight in first round, and they got jumped. Be aggressive today, and that's where I would start thinking from now until draft starts.
Doug, when you look at the way people have reacted to this pick, and obviously when you're in a position like general manager, not every single thing you do is going to be popular, but do you think there's a way to salvage this draft in the public eye with what you're talking about today? Do you think that will kind of smooth things over with this fan base and with this city?
Well, hey, let's think about this. When you start at the top, the Rooneys and Omar has been in the way the Steelers do it. They aren't going to acquiesce and placate to public opinion. They have the way they do things, and they're going to stick to the way they do things. And it may not be popular, especially with the draft in Pittsburgh. Everybody would have liked that sexy, shiny pick of Makai Lemon. Absolutely. But if you look at what they have been doing from the time Omar took over with Andy Weidel, is building in from the trenches. And that's their MO. And they're not going to change it just because the draft's in here or everybody on the outside says we need a wide receiver. With that said, though, they are obviously know that they need another wide receiver, not only to be the number 3 now, but eventually be a number 2 or number 1 when the other 2 start to phase out. So I feel like they're going to, in my opinion, if they want to still stick with their philosophy, but still a need, but turn up the aggression a little bit, like I said, package one of your third-round picks and your second-round pick, try to move up and get a targeted wide receiver in the second round. You'll still have 2 third-round picks after that, and that's where you can either go guard, DB, quarterback, whatever combination they feel is highest on their board.
When you look at the receivers still available, too, there are still a lot of names that not only the Steelers brought in for these visits, but that are high-caliber guys that could immediately make an impact, can kind of come in and be a day-one starter. You mentioned Denzel Boston. Is he kind of the guy that you look at and say, hey, the Steelers really need to target him? Is there another receiver that you really like left of the guys still available for the Steelers to look to select in the second round?
I just think looking at Denzel Boston, my comp to him is he's on par. He's similar to a Mike Evans. And if you look at the receivers that they have, DK Metcalf and Pittman, they're bigger body guys that have good ball skills, that play big, and are hard to man up and cover because of their size and the way they play with their strength. This guy could fill that role. So if you walked off the bus with Denzel Boston, Pittman, and DK Metcalf, you got some dudes coming off the bus, and that's going to be a hard matchup. You put those 3 guys out there on the field at the same time. I'm just saying, for me, with the draft capital we have, I would personally package and try to go get that guy.
Doug, when you're looking at guards specifically, how imperative is it for this team to fill that hole today as opposed to tomorrow?
I don't think it's imperative because what you can do and what it sounds like listening to Mike McCarthy's press conference, they're going to go in and try to get a combination of the best 5 offensive linemen out there. Does that mean Fautano maybe moves to guard or Dylan Cook kicks into guard? There's going to be combinations being used throughout minicamp, offseason and training camp. So is it imperative? No, but I think they need to get a guard at some point just to add to the depth. And it's going to be very interesting to see the ultimate starting lineup for 5 offensive linemen for the Steelers coming in their first game, because there's going to be a lot of iterations, and they're going to find out which ones are the ones that work best together and give them the best chance to protect Aaron Rodgers and open up holes for the running game.
When you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, and I feel like, we're sitting here again, same story, different year now for the second year in a row with the uncertainty surrounding Rodgers. Of course, it feels almost certain that he is going to return to Pittsburgh. But, throughout this draft process, Mike McCarthy and Omar Khan both have mentioned wanting to add a quarterback in some way. And Mike McCarthy gave some stipulations of, what he said he would like. He wants a guy at the right time, feels like a mid-round guy. He mentioned the long arms, the big hands, and a guy with a high floor compared to that high ceiling. When you look at the quarterbacks still available, which one do you feel like fits the best coming into Pittsburgh if they do decide to draft one of these guys? Who would you hope to see them potentially look to add? Or do you say, hey, stay away, you don't need one of these guys this year?
I would say if you don't have a quarterback, I'm a proponent of drafting a quarterback every year. And if you look at with what their caveats of what they like, I personally, out of that, I would go Carson Beck just because of his ability to get his team into impactful games and playing high at a high level when the games count most. And that's the thing that I have a hang-up with Drew Aller. When he came in and the spotlight was on and the pressure was on him to deliver when the games counted most, he just couldn't come through. And it wasn't just one time. It was over and over and over again. And to use a Tomlinism, when someone shows you who they are, believe it. Now, Carson Beck, he's had some ups and downs, but he did lead his team to the national championship game last year. So for me, I would go, if all things are equal, and again, I always caveat this when I talk about quarterbacks, saying there's a difference in seeing a guy play on tape and on TV, and there's a difference between that and then watching a guy and watching his film with him, and understanding his thought process, how he processes information, why he did what he did, and his thought process of how he got to doing that. And that tells a lot more than the layman that's just watching from the TV copy or grinding the tape. So I'm not in on those conversations, and that would have changed my mind. But just from an outside view, if you're looking at those two, I would go with Carson Beck. To me, if you want to wait a little later, maybe 4th, 5th round, I think even though the team didn't have success, Cade Klubnik at Clemson is another guy that I think is going to go later in the draft that in the end will outperform his draft stock or his draft status. And I'm not saying he's going to be a starter, but I think he could be a long-time viable backup player that will be a 10-year vet that will come in and be able to keep a team 500 while he waits, while the starter is on the mend.
Doug, I got one more for you. Definitely a pivot from what we've been talking about, but given your relationship with the Pitt football program, we could hear a Panther called today as well, Kyle Lewis. What would be your elevator pitch to teams after seeing so much of him here in the Southside facility?
Ball production. When you're talking about defensive players, if you can get a defensive player that gets his hands on the ball and creates turnovers, there's no reason to shy away from him. He's athletic. He's speed. The game makes sense to him. He's got a nose for the ball. And if you have a defensive coordinator that has a very intricate mind on how to put pieces together and really put pressure on the offense, he is a great chess piece. He is one of those dynamic players that you can use as an off-ball linebacker. You can put in nickel situations and cover. He doesn't have to be taken out. He can cover he can cover running backs. He can cover slots underneath. And he has the speed to run if they want to go deep. And add to the fact he'll be a special teams demon. But in the end, he is a guy that can produce, taking the ball away from offenses And that's a quality that is very hard to find, but is high value in my book.
Well, we are very excited to see where Kyle Lewis ends up. Doug, thank you so much for your time and your expertise over these last 2 days of the draft.
Yes.
We appreciate it, and thanks so much for being with us. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Mike DeFabo, Steelers beat writer from The Athletic, joins us. This is Inside the Draft. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up, and taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard. Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazik and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News. Channel 11 News, live at 4, 5, and 6. The biggest local stories from neighborhood to neighborhood, impacting you the most. Breaking news. First, the experienced team asking tough questions, digging for answers, and getting the facts to keep you informed and safe. Every day, count on Channel 11 News at 4, 5, and 6.
When weather's on the way, Severe Weather Team 11's priority is to keep you safe. Storms can bring heavy rain, hail, and strong winds, so it's important for us to get it right. Our experienced team tracks the specific timing of storms and potential impact where you live. With us, when it's urgent, you will know, and we'll constantly keep you updated.
When weather is on the way, count on Severe Weather Team 11 on Channel 11 News.
And welcome back to Inside the Draft. I'm Jenna Harner, she's Shelby Cassesi, and we are joined by Mike DeFabo, Steelers beat writer for The Athletic. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's a very busy day here at Steelers headquarters. You were here late last night writing all the reaction to the Steelers' first-round pick in offensive lineman Max Iheanachor. It was a very interesting sequence of events that happened last night and what came out after the fact that the Steelers made their pick. The Eagles jumping up ahead of the Dallas Cowboys at 20th overall to select Makai Lemon, the Steelers selecting Iheanachor, and then the video comes out that the Steelers were on the phone with Makai Lemon set to draft him, and Philly's calling. It seemed like there was a lot of reaction, I guess, that happened last night.
Yeah, you know, the way that I would look at this is if the Steelers had just drafted Big Max, I'm not even going to try to butcher his last name.
I think calling him IMAX, by the way. Did you pick up on that?
I did. I like that.
I love that. There we go. We need a little Pittsburgh nickname like that.
Yeah.
But I think that there wouldn't have been this negative reaction. And largely, Makai Lemon was not expected to be there. A lot of people thought that he was going to go 13th overall to the Rams, a wide receiver needy team. So the ripple effect really started when the Rams went with Ty Simpson. Then it looked like a logical destination would have been the Jets. Instead, they went with tight end. You know, and then the Panthers were another team at 19 that maybe was going to look for a wide receiver. So it actually looked like a best-case scenario was unfolding for the Steelers, and really just because he was so close to their reach and then they did not get him, it became such a disappointment. But in reality, you know, I think a realistic scenario would have been the Steelers ending up with a tackle in the first round. And so, you know, I think over time, really, this is still going to end up being a valuable pick, a guy that in 2 to 3 years, when he reaches his potential, can be an important piece to an offensive line that the Steelers have invested in heavily. But I think it's just the context that changes the way that people view this pick.
Did that add anything more to your thoughts on the Broderick Jones situation? We've seen the Steelers be pretty consistent that, you know, he's still going through evaluations, nothing has changed, but did that add anything more to the situation for you, or is it just coincidence?
You know, I think that the Steelers publicly through this draft process have wanted to make it appear that they were not desperate to get an offensive tackle. So publicly, Omar Khan would always give positive updates. But behind the scenes, this is a very significant injury. He had spinal fusion surgery, which is anytime you're talking about the neck of a player who is an offensive lineman in particular, that's pretty serious. And the other thing to factor into this is Broderick Jones's neck is not the only factor in this. He's also missed time in the weight room, and regaining his strength is going to be an important part of this process. So, you know, there's no guarantee he's going to be ready by training camp or even week 1. At that same time, the Steelers have now used 3 of their last 4 first-round picks at offensive tackle, and I cannot sit here right now with you and tell you who their starting left tackle is going to be week 1. Because you look at it, Broderick Jones has question marks because of his injury status. Troy Falatanu was a college left tackle who converted to a right tackle. And now you've got Big Max coming in, and over his 2.5 years as a starter at Arizona State, he played only on the right side. So one way or another, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces to this offensive line that's still young and very much in development.
And I think something that gives a lot of fans pause as they're learning more about this selection is the fact that he is a raw prospect, that he is a bit green of a player. I mean, he didn't start playing football ever until 2021, which
crazy, yeah.
It's fascinating
He
to
played
think.
zero snaps in high school. He was a soccer player and a basketball player, and it was actually his AAU basketball coach that encouraged him to play football. He started out as a 240-pound tight end at the junior college level. After 2 years and putting on some weight, then he transferred to the major Division I level and played very well. And he has some outstanding traits. He has the upside, and there's a reason why he was considered a first-round pick by a lot of teams, not just the Pittsburgh Steelers. You look at his testing numbers and his measurables. You know, he brings a 6'6" frame, 325 pounds. He also ran the 2nd fastest 40 of any offensive lineman. He also had the 3rd best broad jump. So he is a big, mobile, sudden, quick twitch type of offensive lineman. All those things eventually will make him a potential impact starter at this next level. But as we saw with Broderick Jones and other guys who are young, it does take time, and this is a challenging position. So the other part of this is the Steelers have made a change to their coaching staff. Before, one of the coaches that was often criticized was offensive line coach Pat Meyer, because of the fact the Steelers invested so heavily in the offensive line. Did not necessarily see that return on investment. Now they're bringing in James Campen, who is a very well-respected offensive line coach who has taken 4th and 5th and 6th round picks and turned them into starters. So now the Steelers are really entrusting not just Mike McCarthy, but his new staff to develop a first-round pick.
Where do you see the Steelers going today in terms of offensive line? Because in my mind, it feels like a priority to potentially get a guard today. But at the same time, it could be the Steelers are trying to just find the 5 best players to put out there across their offensive line. Despite the investment that they've made in these last couple of years, where do you see the direction of that unit going?
Yeah, I mean, I think if the right player was there, Venga Ioane, you know, he would have been the Steelers selection. Of course, he inevitably goes to their division rival, the Baltimore Ravens, at 14th overall. But the Steelers definitely had their eyes on him. Another guy, Keelan Rutledge, who they had in for a pre-draft visit, he also is off the board, unfortunately. So the Steelers, during their pre-draft process, of the 33 players they brought to Pittsburgh for visits, they had 2 of the top 4 guards were among that group. So clearly that is a need for them at some point in the draft. You know, early on in day 2, though, I wonder if they're going to look for a wide receiver and a defensive back. Since they missed out on their wide receiver target, they still only have 4 guys in that room. They don't feel quite as much of a pressing concern to address it because they brought in Michael Pittman. Still, most teams carry 6 wide receivers on their depth chart. The Steelers only have 4, including guys like Roman Wilson with a lot of question marks surrounding him. There's still hope that he can be the player they drafted in the 3rd round, but he has yet to show it on an NFL football field. And, you know, of course, the other guy that they have, Ben Skoranek, is more of a special teamer. So they still need some weapons. And then defensive back, I could see them getting either a safety or a corner, depending where it goes. I think safety's the much bigger need. I like the guy, Treydon Stukes from Arizona, because of his versatility and ability to play all over the secondary.
You mentioned receiver, and you have researched this draft class extensively, especially particularly the guys the Steelers have brought in for visits, have been chatting with, have communicated with throughout this entire process. Who, when you look at the receiver targets today, are players the Steelers should really say, hey, we need to do everything in our power to get this guy, trade up for this guy, et cetera? Who are some of those targets that the front office should be looking at?
Well, the first guy on the list would be Denzel Boston from Washington. And he was a guy that they did have in for a pre-draft visit. And a lot of the national analysts had him with a first-round grade. Now he's slipping into that second round. And he's going to be a guy, I think, that's going to be coveted by a lot of teams. The challenge for the Steelers is they aren't the only wide receiver needy team. You know, you look at the way that the draft is shaking out, a lot of the teams that are picking with the first 5 or so picks in the second round all need wide receivers, including the Las Vegas Raiders, that I think if they have the option, they are not going to let Boston get past him. I've heard some rumblings at the Combine that they could be very interested in him. You know, so beyond Boston, the other guy I think to circle would be Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. He was another pre-draft visitor. And when you look at the pre-draft visitors for the Steelers, they had 6 wide receivers come in. 3 of them were in that first to second round range, and 3 of them were in that late round type of range. So it looks like a double dip at that position could be a possibility. And Jeremy Bernard would be the last of those early visitors that could be an option for them in the second round.
When you talk about the top 30 visitors, how much does that list reflect where the Steelers could go today? Because it was so many mid to late round picks. I think people were a little confused at the difference this year between years past about how few first round picks projected that they had in for top 30 visits. So how much do you see that list reflecting what they do today?
Yeah, I think that you can read 2 things into those pre-draft visits. The first thing is sometimes it'll just put up a big red flag, or whatever, like flashing lights that this guy is on their radar. That happened a couple years ago when they brought in Darnell Washington. He was the only tight end that they brought in. Sure enough, they draft him. On the other hand, the year that they drafted Roman Wilson, they brought in 7 wide receivers. They didn't draft any of them, but then ended up getting Roman. So in that instance, it just indicated more so a position group that they wanted to look at. So beyond what we had already talked about with wide receiver and defensive back, the thing that stuck out to me from these pre-draft visits was tight end and linebacker also groups that they're going to look to address somewhere in those middle rounds. Right now they only have 2 tight ends on the depth chart. They're going to need to address that position in some way. And then inside linebacker was one of the real surprises from these top 30 visits. I think they had 5 different guys in, including Kyle Lewis, who went to Pitt. And I could see them looking for an upgrade, probably to Malik Harrison, as that downhill thumper kind of guy, run down, early down kind of impact player. And so if the right guy is there at the right time, even there's a second round guy, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, who they had in for a visit, who's projected to go second round. Maybe even they would take a surprise pick there and go as early as that pick with him.
There's so much conversation surrounding the Steelers right now and just everything that's come out, obviously, that we talked about with the Makai Lemon situation and them obviously drafting Big Max. What does Omar Khan and this front office have to do to, by the end of today, make people in Pittsburgh, make Steelers fans say, okay, I can see a little more of the vision now, maybe take away a little bit of just like the sting of losing Lemon yesterday?
I think finding a wide receiver is important because even after Makai Lemon went off the board, I was sitting there thinking, okay, Omar Cooper, the wide receiver from Indiana, is still available. He's a guy that I think they had interest in. He had played for new Steelers wide receiver coach Adam Henry in 2022 at Indiana University. I thought they would just simply pivot from one wide receiver to the next. And instead they went to a different position. So to answer your question, what they'll need to do is basically show, look, there's not a tremendous drop-off from wide receiver 4 to wide receiver 6, 7, 8, 9, and get a guy that can come in here and be an impact player. I think that that's really the most important thing. And then beyond that, I think if they were able to get a safety who can be a versatile guy to fill some of those responsibilities, especially as free safety. Because I know they brought in Jaquan Brisker, who's going to be a fan favorite because he grew up playing down the street here in Pittsburgh, local kid. But while the Steelers think of him as a versatile guy who can be both in the post or down in the box, really his strength is in the box. And so I think that to cover their bases and make sure they have enough versatility in the secondary, getting more of a true free safety or a well-rounded guy who can do it all, I think would be an important addition.
We can't talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers without bringing up Aaron Rodgers and the quarterback situation. It's an absolute must.
We made it this far? What are we, 17 minutes into this before you brought him up?
Well, he's after last night, he kind of fell down the leaderboard a little bit in terms of conversations to have. But where do you see this? How do you see this playing out as the goalposts kind of continue to move from the Steelers, number one? And number two, do you expect them to add some depth here at that position today or tomorrow?
Yeah, you phrased it well when you said the goalposts continue to move, because, you know, I talked to people around the combine who are main decision makers in the front office, and it was their belief that they were going to get an answer from Aaron Rodgers around free agency. And when that answer did not come, Art Rooney, the team president and owner, moved the goalpost and said he expected an answer before the draft. Now, obviously, we're in the middle of the draft. That did not happen. And so now the goalposts have moved again. And the new target is around OTAs. Now, trying to predict what Aaron Rodgers will do and when is a dangerous game. So whether they get that answer or not remains to be seen. But that is the new target that you're going to start hearing people talk about. Will Aaron Rodgers be there for OTAs? In the meantime, today, I think that there's a chance as early as the end of today with one of those third-round picks, or potentially early tomorrow with one of their fourth-round picks, I could see them getting a quarterback. And when you read between the lines of what Mike McCarthy has said publicly, he said that he was looking for a quarterback at the right time. So not Ty Simpson. He was looking for a middle-round quarterback. He talked about long arms and big hands, and he talked about a high floor. A lot of those attributes describe Carson Beck. And I know from putting stories out and reading the comments, Pittsburgh fans do not seem to be thrilled about the notion of Carson Beck, whose final throw at Georgia was an interception and whose final throw at Miami was an interception. That said, he still only lost 6 games in his college career. He has 43 college starts. He threw for more than 3,000 yards in each of the last 3 seasons. He is a high-floor guy for that reason. And what you would be betting on is, you know, you bring him in, and if things work out the way that everyone's expecting, Aaron Rodgers comes in, and now you have 2 young guys in Will Howard and Carson Beck, or potentially somebody else. There's a couple other guys that they could be considering. They can work with him and see if maybe one of those guys can be the eventual heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers.
Poor Mason Rudolph just out to pasture yet again.
I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out, because I think there's also a world where they decide that they want to use that pick instead to move up, and maybe they do want to ride it out with Mason Rudolph. You know, other guys, you know, Cole Payton is another guy that they had in for a pre-draft visit from North Dakota State. He's considered more of a project, big guy, left-handed, kind of a wonky throwing motion. And then Talon Green is a guy from Arkansas who was one of the best athletes at the Combine. He's drawing comparisons to Taysom Hill because he just has so much athleticism and is more of a football player first and quarterback second, but still a decent enough quarterback to be considered a viable option maybe in the middle of day 3. So there's still some options out there for the Steelers at quarterback.
We'll put you on the spot, as we did with both Alan Saunders and Chris Carter yesterday, although the first-round projection may have been a little bit of an easier decision to make.
We stunk at our first-round projection.
We were all wrong.
No, yes.
We were all incorrect there. Who are the Steelers selecting with their second-round pick, and what are they doing today?
You know, I think that they're going to move up, and I think that they're going to try to get Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. I don't know if they'll be able to get all the way up to get a guy like Denzel Boston. If they can, I think that might be the dream scenario that excites the crowd and gets people reinvigorated in the draft here in Pittsburgh. And then beyond that, let's see here.
Emmanuel McNeil-Warren's still available, right?
He's available. That's another option early on. Treydon Stukes is another guy that I think is interesting for the Steelers because, as I mentioned before, he's a very versatile defensive back. He played for five different defensive coordinators and 3 different head coaches. And all that change meant that he had to move around a ton in the secondary. So he has experience as an outside corner. He's played in the nickel. He's played safety. And when you hear Patrick Graham, the new defensive coordinator, talk about his scheme and his philosophy, he's all about versatility and all about disguising coverages. And having another one of those guys, you can't even name him a position, he's just defensive back in a similar mold to Jalen Ramsey, would just give him a lot of options. I just really like the fit here in Pittsburgh. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I think that he would be, you know, a great addition for the Steelers.
Well, Mike, we thank you for your time. We know you have a busy day ahead, getting ready to hopefully not write about 4 prospects in a row. Hopefully there's going to be a trade or 2 up there that will take some work off your plate. But thank you so much for joining us. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're talking more about some of the Pitt players who could hear their names go in the next few days. This is Inside the Draft. We'll be right back.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up. And taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard. Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazik and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News. Channel 11 News, live at 4, 5, and 6. The biggest local stories from neighborhood to neighborhood, impacting you the most. Breaking news. First, the experienced team asking tough questions, digging for answers, and getting the facts to keep you informed and safe. Every day, count on Channel 11 News at 4, 5, and 6.
When weather's on the way, Severe Weather Team 11's priority is to keep you safe. Storms can bring heavy rain, hail, and strong winds, so it's important for us to get it right. Our experienced team tracks the specific timing of storms and potential impact where you live. With us, when it's urgent, you will know, and we'll constantly keep you updated.
When weather is on the way, count on Severe Weather Team 11 on Channel 11 News.
And welcome back to Inside the Draft. We are just about a half hour away from meeting the Steelers' first-round pick, Max Iheanachor, for the first time here at Steelers headquarters. We're really excited about that. But in the meantime, we're getting people ready for rounds 2 and 3 of the draft, which are taking place later tonight. We're talking some Pitt names. We had Pat Narduzzi, Pitt head coach, on earlier, talking about some players that could go as soon as today. Kyle Lewis being one of them. He's so interesting to me, and you can sense throughout this whole process just his excitement to get to the next level. I mean, he was such a spark for what this Pitt defense did this season, and really carried a lot of what the team's mentality was throughout the year.
I feel like versatility has been the key word maybe these last couple of days, because what NFL team doesn't want versatility in a player anymore? But, I mean, Kyle Lewis is that in so many ways. And so we asked Doug Whaley, you know, what his elevator pitch would be to teams. He talked about that smarts, the versatility, the ball hawk sense. And so I'm really curious to see where he winds up. I think he'll be a great, one of those like diamond in the rough finds for whoever does select him.
Very much so. We had the chance to speak with him at the Combine. Here's some snippets of what he said when he was meeting with reporters from across the league.
Last few months been crucial. Every morning, just remember while I'm here, waking up, you know, calling the family, staying motivated, and just staying focused, just overly focused during this last few months, this fourth quarter, I can call it. He helped me out with everything, just from a football player aspect to a man that's you gotta get ready to be critiqued or anything. He helped me with everything, being having a thick layer of skin, and just, especially as a football player, just prepared from playing linebacker to nickel to anything. He prepared me for all that. I got a great opportunity of playing a position called star. Star is not a position for everybody. It's not a position for pure linebackers or pure DBs. You really just gotta be in a mix of both of it. So I feel like the position was perfectly tailored for me. And just learning the system more and more, and the experience I gained, staying at Pitt the whole time and trusting the system, it helped me grow as a player exponentially. People going to watch my Senior Bowl and say, well, they can't say if they don't know who I am before, they're going to say I was just a Senior Bowl standout. But you look at my Senior Bowl and you look at my season tape, you're going to see that I've been doing this and I've been making plays. And I'm going to continue making plays, and I'm going to keep getting my name out there. People like me is what the league needs. I feel like the league is definitely becoming a passing league, and I feel like I still, as a great linebacker, all 3 down linebacker, 12 personnel, any heavy personnel, and on top of that, I can still cover. It's like, it's on top of it. It's not taking away that I can't do any run defense. It's added on top of it. The coaches already told the teams, because the coaches see me every morning. I'm always just watching film in the morning before practice, getting other guys in and watch film, and doing extra reps at in the field and everything. And I was grateful to have a captain role this year and just lift and inspire everybody that was next to me, everybody that I loved in that locker room. I came in with a slow start. I was getting injured a lot, and because I was getting injured, I always had to come in early for rehab and everything, like at 6 in the morning. So after I finally got fully healthy with that, I was already used to just coming in extra early. So I might as well spend this time hopping in the film room. So I'll just get in a little bit more early, hop in the film room. And once I seen it made a drastic difference from practice, I just started doing it every day. Yeah, man, everything to me. Just staying there and changing the culture. That was definitely a special moment with everybody that I was a part of, him, Bray, all of them. Just changing the culture, being a part of that shark mentality throughout the whole season. Last year they learned about it, and this year it was just throughout the whole season. So it's definitely one of the special, greatest moments of my life. Yeah, he definitely laid a path. Switching from safety to linebacker, he taught me how to go get that ball, how to be a ball seek, how to be a missile seeking linebacker, shooting the gaps and playing fast. I definitely got that play style from Sebastian. My best instincts is coverage, and I'm just a film junkie, so I jump plays. And I cheat a lot of plays just so I could jump it. I see it coming, I'm gonna make the play. I'm trying to be a ball player. I'm trying to get the ball by any means. People try to say because of my size, I'm undersized for a linebacker, but it's a lot of linebackers that was my size, or even just a smidge bit taller, whatever you can want to call it, that made plays. So I'm just here to showcase that you don't gotta be too forward to make plays. You don't gotta be too forward to hit stick.
And I feel like one of the biggest things we learned about Kyle Lewis throughout this draft process was how much of a film junkie he is. Of course, he mentioned that. That was something that Pat Narduzzi spoke so highly of. And he is a very talented defensive back, however teams want to look to use him. Of course, he's in that linebacker position, but teams also potentially could see him as a safety, kind of that versatile role where, what the Seahawks did with Nick Eamon-Worry this past year. So he has, again, versatility is something I feel like we keep coming back to, almost that positionless football, but he has the versatility to be both. It does seem like he's going to be drafted sometime today. He's been projected to go in the 3rd round. A lot of teams really like what they're seeing from Kyle Lewis, especially all the film he put out there.
And credit to him because, he's 5'11", 220. He's considered undersized. And when you are considered undersized, you have to find the ways to differentiate yourself, to kind of overcome your size. And it was actually something that kind of pivoting a little bit here, but Jordan Tyson, Godspeed to him. He was an early 1st-round pick last night. But when I talked to him at the prospect clinic the other day, I asked him, how did you develop that versatility in your game? And he said, I was always short, so I was just trying to do whatever I could do to differentiate myself, to give myself more of an opportunity. And I think in that same vein, Kyle Lewis had that same approach to it, being able to be versatile on the field, finding your advantages in film rather than in your athletic ability almost. And so I think that will serve him well as one of those mid-round picks where you have these more intangibles, you have this ability to be a bit more flexible because your size required that.
Another Pitt guy that potentially has the chance to go today or sometime tomorrow is running back Desmond Reed, and he is such an interesting athlete. Of course, coming here with Cade Bell when Pat Narduzzi brought on the new offensive staff, he was a lightning bolt. He is so quick, so fast. He obviously, unfortunately, dealt with a lot of injuries this past season, was never fully healthy. But when we spoke with him at Pitt Pro Day, which we'll hear from just momentarily here, you could sense he's just thrilled to finally be healthy again and be ready to prove to teams what he can do. Let's take a listen to that sound.
What has the past, few months been like for you going through this process?
It's been tough, but, I'm thankful, to be in the position I'm in. Not a lot of people get to, do a lot of us came out here and did. So, I'm just blessed. It's been tough, but everybody go through tough times. You just got to fight through it.
So what keeps you going through the adversity?
Just coming out here, really. I don't really have to fight through. As long as I'm, out here playing football, I'm happy, So just happy and thankful to be out here.
Are you at 100, and when did you get to that again, percentage-wise?
I can't really tell you when. I just felt good.
Just felt good.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the combine experience like for you? Was it disappointing that you couldn't do anything out there?
Yeah, it was disappointing, but I was just happy to be, come here and do what I can do. But that whole process, I loved it up there. Got to talk to a lot of people, met, the running backs. A lot of us in common, really. A lot of people look at us different, but a lot of us, we have a lot in common. So, got to meet with a lot of guys, talk to the scouts. It was a great mood up there.
Have there been certain teams that have kind of been talking to you more than others?
A lot of teams talk to me. I won't really say talk to me more or less. It's kind of all I'm really showing love to me. So, yeah.
How much of an asset has your special teams play been when you're talking to the scouts and teams?
That's the first thing I try to throw out there. Like, hey, I'm a punt return, kick return. That's an easy way, not an easy way, but that's a way to get your name out there. It's gonna be tough for me, going to the next level just to come off rip and play running back. So, I know I'm real good at special teams. I take pride in it, and I just love doing it. So any way I can help the team, I'm gonna do that.
Des, I think you were clocked around a 4.55 on the 40 today. Just how do you feel like that went? Was that a number that was a surprise? Is that what you're kind of expecting? Just how did you feel the 40 went?
I wasn't really happy with it. But it was just, how I'm my first time really back out here, really running for real. So, wasn't really happy with it, but, just blessed to be, like I said, blessed to be here. Got to do other things and, showcase my routes, showcase my quickness, and I was proud of myself doing that.
What is the fastest 40 you've clocked?
I clocked a 4.3.
Okay.
Yeah, 4.3. But, like I said, it was disappointing, but, I got to do other stuff, and I was happy with the other results. So, at the end of the day, not a bad day. Yeah.
Des, we've seen that route running over the course of your college career. How did you get it to that point where it's so sharp as a running back?
I have a lot of, history playing receiver back in my younger days. When I first came into college, I wasn't really running routes when I was at Western Carolina. But once I got here, that was another way I can be used and, dominate. And, we had a great OC coach, Cade Bell, just finding matchups with me with linebackers, and I just always worked on routes. Even though I wasn't, getting a lot of routes at my other school, I always worked on it, even with the other running backs. So, it kind of showcased.
Cade always knew what you were capable of, but what did it mean for Coach Narduzzi to kind of show the same faith in you and give you a chance?
Like I said, I was happy. I'm just happy, to be in the position I was in. It's tough for, an FCS kid to come to a Power 5 and, even play. It's tough to do that. So, I was just thankful and blessed, be able to, put that Pitt helmet on and be out there, playing no matter what. So, I'm just happy with that.
Do you know what your plans are for the draft? Are you going to be in town or back in Florida?
Most likely I'm gonna be up here. Yeah, it's in Pittsburgh, so I'm gonna be in Pittsburgh.
Pretty cold that where you're playing, right?
Yeah. Coach Narduzzi said he thought you put on some weight since the end of the season. How much have you put on?
Sure, I gained about a good 15 pounds. Yeah, so trying to get used to the weight. I'm kind of there, but this is different for me. But I feel good. Yeah, I feel good at this weight.
Is this the healthiest you've been since the West Virginia game?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, the whole season I was really battling through the ankle. High ankle sprain, something that, it's hard to get over that. And, I wasn't really giving it any rest. Just want to come out every time and, help my team win, no matter if I'm 100% or not. So, yeah, I'm definitely feeling better than I felt.
It's so good to hear from Des Reed. That was at Pitt Pro Day about a month ago, and just him saying he's the healthiest he's been, which is such an amazing thing considering all the injuries he went through this season. But I also loved, too, he was asked, what are your draft plans when you do? He's like, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So we can only hope, too, that we hear his name called at some point throughout the weekend. What a cool moment to have your name called right outside the stadium you spent the last part of your collegiate career playing on.
Yeah, and all the best for him. The injury stuff was tough last year because he had such an explosive year the year prior. High expectations, such a valuable part of what that offense does. And my gosh, an ankle injury is just something that is so difficult to come back from. I know he tried numerous times and just could not be himself. So that's always tough for someone who obviously has NFL aspirations as well. You're thinking maybe a day 3, perhaps an undrafted free agent, but a guy who, knowing him, knowing what he did just coming here to Pitt, made that transition from FCS to Power 4 so seamlessly.
Very.
He could easily be a guy that goes into a camp somewhere and impresses as a returner. You heard him talk about, that's an easy way for me to make an impact.
Yeah.
He was so explosive in that role. I could easily see him going into a camp, winning a job like that, and he's often quite literally running.
I love that. Often quite literally running. And Kyle Lewis and Des Reed too, throughout the process, talked about some of the guys that came before them that kind of set the standard, laid that foundation. One of those guys is a fan favorite, I feel like, across the NFL at this point. Not even just in Pittsburgh, not even just in Buffalo where he plays. Demar Hamlin. Our producer Kelly had the chance to catch up with him at a scholarship event he did at his alma mater, Central Catholic, about what his draft experience was like, and he gave a very, very interesting answer.
It's completely stressful. It's like you don't have any control in that moment at all. I watched my name sit on best available for like 2 rounds, so it was very stressful. Just not knowing, you've worked so hard for one moment, one thing, and the opportunity can come your way and it may not. And either way, you still have to be able to, still know who you are throughout the whole process and, continue to develop yourself into what it takes to be a professional, because it is a big jump. But, honestly, to tie it back into what we're doing today, being here really prepared me for those moments. It really prepared me to be a professional in the real world, no matter what came my way, whether it was continuously football, whether it was being a businessman, whether it was just continue to lead with my service, whatever it was, it was truly built in these hallways, in these walls, and on this campus.
And do you remember the call after that? Was it just, you're just so happy?
Yeah, I remember the call. I'm not gonna lie, I was pissed off because I just felt like, I knew who I was as a player, and I felt like I should have went earlier. So for the first 25 to 30 minutes, I was like, I can't wait to show him. I can't wait to show him who I am and why I should have got picked earlier. But everything happens for a reason. I fell into, thank God, the best place, the best organization, the best everything that I can have, with being a Buffalo Bill. But the first 25 minutes, I was ticked off. I'm even on the phone call when I'm hearing from our general manager, our owner, our head coach. I'm trying to get them off the phone as fast as I can, just so I can I want to get to Buffalo as fast as I can and show them who I am. But after I got some hugs from my family, the tears start rolling. And then, just everyone around me being super happy, it just made me realize, calm down for a second, you'll be all right, enjoy this moment. And the rest of the day after that was just it was no looking back. You couldn't, it was just a blessing.
Very candid.
Very. And it's been so amazing to see how far Demar Hamlin has come, and his story and the way that it's been written has just been beautiful in so many different ways. I love the chip on the shoulder, immediate mentality, as he should have had, because he, again, felt like he was a very, very talented player that teams passed up on him, and he immediately wanted to get to Buffalo and say, hey, look at what I'm doing, look at what I can do. And the impact he has made in the NFL for so many reasons, not only his play on the field, but of course what happened in that Bengals game, the terrifying moments moving forward, and then the impact he's made. I feel like I almost get emotional when I think about it, because he talks about this extensively too, but the purpose he has in life is so much greater than I think he could have ever imagined when he received that phone call a few years ago.
Exactly. You truly never know how things will pan out. And I even think about, and for those who may not be familiar, Demar Hamlin has been, and his foundation has been the catalyst for so many heart health initiatives, for CPR, for AEDs in schools. I mean, just across the board, the impact that he's had in that way. And I think back to a story that we did at Channel 11, you know, through his foundation, people were taking, the student athletes, they were taking CPR and AED classes, and Ellie Breach, the Pitt goaltender for Pitt soccer, took this class, went home for Christmas break. Her father had a heart attack on Christmas. She did CPR for, I believe it was 9 minutes before paramedics arrived, saved his life. I mean, that's just one story of the impact that Demar Hamlin has had. And so you're right. I mean, to think that he was so upset that day that he got that call from Buffalo, but the story that has played out has been probably from his wildest dreams.
And you mentioned those initiatives. We actually just learned that Demar Hamlin and the American Heart Association broke the world record for most people trained in hands-on CPR. They were down at Acrisure Stadium on the field earlier today. Some of these pictures from some of the reporters that are there are just incredible. I mean, there's a sea of people.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Looking to learn CPR, and what amazing things this is going to do, because again, you never know the situation that could happen again. It could be an Ellie Breach style situation where you learn, you have this knowledge, you know what to do when an emergency strikes, and you can potentially look to save someone's life. So a big congratulations to Demar Hamlin and his foundation. We have to take one more quick break. We're gonna head to break, and then we'll come back wrapping up our final thoughts. We're just minutes away from talking with the newest member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We will be right back on Inside the Draft.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up. And taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard. Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazik and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News. Channel 11 News, live at 4, 5, and 6. The biggest local stories from neighborhood to neighborhood, impacting you the most. Breaking news. First, the experienced team asking tough questions, digging for answers, and getting the facts to keep you informed and safe. Every day, count on Channel 11 News at 4, 5, and 6.
When weather's on the way, Severe Weather Team 11's priority is to keep you safe. Storms can bring heavy rain, hail, and strong winds, so it's important for us to get it right. Our experienced team tracks the specific timing of storms and potential impact where you live. With us, when it's urgent, you will know, and we'll constantly keep you updated.
When weather is on the way, count on Severe Weather Team 11 on Channel 11 News.
And welcome back to Inside the Draft. I'm a little sad. We're about to wrap things up here.
Our boss just asked us if we could talk for 24 hours, and we probably could.
Probably could. We might need some sleep. Sleep after this week is going to be incredibly crucial and incredibly necessary. In just minutes, though, we are going to head into the Steelers facility. Their first-round pick, Max. I need to make sure I have it. I feel like I'm so confident with his pronunciation. And then I step back and I'm like, wait a second.
I told you this, but like last night on my way home, my brain combined Max Iheanachor and Okorafor, and it's kind of stunned me since then. I'm afraid the wrong thing is going to come out, but yes, Max Iheanachor. And you know what, listening to even Demar Hamlin's sound in the last segment about how just things play out, and he was upset about getting the phone call as late as he did, it kind of just, I don't know, it almost like reminded me of what Max might be going through a little bit right now, because obviously he was picked significantly high, but he's walking into a situation where there's a lot of feelings around his selection, and he knows a lot about what happened behind the scenes, I'm sure, at this point. But kind of trusting in the process here and potentially finding your home and understanding that things happen for a reason. It might be a good perspective for him to have right now, because I'm sure there's some mental challenge to what's transpired around this.
No, I can absolutely bet. And I'm sure it's probably like a very split feeling of this incredible excitement. A player who didn't play football until 2021 to getting drafted as a first-round pick, the elation that comes with that, the life-changing moment it is for him and his family and his parents who have sacrificed so much for him, along with this. But there's a video that came out that I wasn't the first choice. So I'm interested to see kind of the parallels of that. But I mean, again, we spoke with his JUCO coach earlier, and just he seems just like a person with phenomenal perspective and just very much trusting the process type of person, that I feel like this is going to be something where that shines through when we speak with him in just a few minutes.
Yes, absolutely. So very, very much so looking forward to speaking with him. What do you think the Steelers are up to today in the second round?
I feel like there has to be a trade. I think that, I know you
There's
talked
too many
with,
picks.
There are too many picks. I don't think they're using all 4 of the picks they have today, 1 of their second round and 3 of their third round picks. I think there's going to be a trade up, and they're going to look to get a receiver. I think they are going to quell some of the conversation around it, and I feel like the draft stage today is going to erupt when the Steelers pick a receiver in the second round. I think that would just...
All feelings will maybe die down a little bit.
Oh, man, but is that kind of the avenue you're seeing as well?
That is. I mean, you know, to Doug Whaley's point, they have 11 picks left. 11 people aren't making the team. Let's utilize some of those to be a bit more aggressive, jump up here in the second round. As Mike alluded to, I don't know if Denzel Boston will be within reach, even with a trade up, but he would be a great selection, was a top 30 visit. But that would be my reach pick for the Steelers, but I think there's plenty of other options out there as well.
Yeah, Jeremy Bernard, Mike's other pick, was the one that I've been seeing potentially them looking to target. So we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for hanging out with us the last few days. We've had a wonderful time getting to do this. Some great conversation with some phenomenal guests. So we thank you for tuning in. As always, stick with us on Channel 11 live throughout the evening. We'll have all the coverage here from Steelers headquarters. For Bobby Godinez, I'm Jenna Harner. Thanks so much for joining us.
I'm Channel 11 Morning News anchor Liz Kilmer. Paying for food, transportation, and housing, it all adds up. And taking care of your family can feel harder than ever. But that's why we have consumer advisor Clark Howard. Clark knows the market, has the deals, and shares ways that you can save money. He also alerts you to scams so you don't get ripped off. Clark Howard helps you save more, spend less, and avoid scams on Channel 11 Morning News.
First thing when you wake up, Channel 11 Morning News is live to get you ready for the day.
Good morning. Thanks so much for watching.
4:30 to 7 a.m. every weekday. Jennifer Tomazik and Liz Kilmer constantly update breaking and local news.
We are starting the morning with breaking news.
Scott Harbaugh's forecast helps you plan your day. Tricia Pittman gets you around traffic backups. And Clark Howard saves you money.
Now this is a great deal.
Get ready for the day with Channel 11 Morning News.